Chapter 707. With the arrival of the newlyweds, the wedding started to reach its climax. Players, whether they've met before or not, came up to Wu Yin and Asuna and gave them their blessings. Wu Yin raised his glass and thanked everyone while Asuna held his hand. Both of them thanked everyone who came to attend the wedding. As for how many people came to congratulate them, they've almost forgotten about it. They're already numb to it because there's just too many people here. The two of them were tired from dealing with the crowd, but they're also very happy. The joy that accompanied them was a reflection of their inner feelings. There sure are a lot of people here today. Kirito held Liz's hand and looked at the crowd. He felt his scalp tingle. Who invited all these people? Yes, they were all invited by Klein and Suda, and some of them are Agile's acquaintances. Liz rolled her eyes at Kirito and said, Klein and Suda are the leaders of the clearers, so of course they have a lot of connections. Agile is a merchant, so his connections aren't any less than those too. Do you think everyone is like you, a loner all the time? Kirito smiled awkwardly and shut his mouth. He didn't want to say anything else. Klein, Suda, Agile, and the others went to entertain the guests. Sachi, Xian, and Silica did the same. They shuttled back and forth between the tables while eating. At the same time, she let out a bell-like laughter, which became a beautiful scene in the entire venue. These things are delicious. Xian held a plate in one hand and a fork in the other. It's so much better than the food in the guild. Big Brother spent a lot of money to hire some amazing chefs to make these dishes. Sachi looked at Xian and said, I heard that those chefs have been practicing their cooking skills ever since they joined Iseo. Their skills are among the best among all the players. It's a pity that Wu Yin nibbled on a piece of cheesecake and said, Why don't we have Wu Yin nibbles on the menu? Sachi shook her head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Big Brother is the groom today. How could he cook personally? Celia Kaba blinked and pointed at her lips with her fork. That's why I said it's a pity. Oh, Shili. Xian rolled her eyes and smiled slyly. You're so optimistic about Yin. Don't tell me you're interested in him too? Shili's expression stiffened, and then her face turned red. She turned around awkwardly. How? How is this possible? Oh. Shireen let out a strange cry. She hugged Celica. I know. You even dated Yin here before? All the way to the Hill of Memories. How? How did you know? Celica asked out of reflex. She immediately regretted her question. I knew it. Xian rubbed her face against Shili's as if she had discovered a new continent. How about this? I'll help you snatch Yin away from Asuna. Don't do anything rash. Shili panicked. My feelings for Big Brother Wu Yin are only the same as my big brother's. Oh. Xian glanced at her suspiciously. Is that so? Shili pursed her lips. She looked at Xian's doubtful expression and said embarrassedly, Yes, I have a bit of a crush on him, Shili quickly explained, but it's just a crush. Please don't say anything. If Big Sister Asuna finds out, she'll hate you. What if she hates me? Sachi, who had been listening to Shili, tugged at their hands and said, That's enough. Don't say anything rash. Big Brother and the others don't have it easy. Shili and Xian nodded and continued to eat. Yin, you look tired? Asuna, who was accompanying Wu Yin, wiped his face when she saw Wu Yan's tired expression. I'm fine. Wu Yin squeezed out a smile. Usually, Wu Yin was annoyed by this kind of situation. He has never attended a large banquet before. Although it was appropriate for him to handle this kind of situation, it was still uncomfortable. However, today is his wedding. He has to face it. Asuna nodded and said softly, How about this? I'll help you deal with the lower-ranked people. You can talk to the leaders of the guilds. As the former vice leader of Knights of the Blood, Asuna was a keen strategist. However, it was unavoidable for her to attend such events. If it wasn't for Wu Yan's status as the head of the family, Asuna wouldn't have let Wu Yan work so hard. While the two were busy dealing with the crowd, Heathcliff, who was wearing a red knight's battle suit, suddenly appeared at the entrance of the venue. He was accompanied by several high-ranking members of Knights of the Blood. They were wearing white armor with red edges and capes. They walked towards Wu Yin and Asuna. Leader. Asuna looked at Heathcliff with a surprised expression. Even Wu Yin flinched for a second. Usually, Heathcliff would not even show up for strategy meetings. He would only show up when they were trying to take down some of the bosses, but he had never shown up for such a big ceremony. What kind of wind blew him here today? Heathcliff smiled at the two of them and looked at Asuna. Although you have left Knights of the Blood, you've helped me a lot. Today is a special day. It's not strange for me to congratulate you, right? No, it's very strange. The same thought appeared in both Wu Yin and Asuna's mind, but they weren't stupid enough to say it out loud. It's a good thing you didn't come late. Wu Yin didn't want to argue with Heathcliff. He didn't want to offend him. Just remember to drink a few more cups later. Of course. Heathcliff smiled. Well then, congratulations to the two of you. Thank you. Wu Yin and Asuna looked at each other and smiled. Congratulations and cheers resounded throughout the entire wedding venue. Even the ordinary players who were stopped to watch the proceedings of the wedding. Accompanied by laughter and petals that filled the sky, the people ushered in the dusk. Wu Yin and Asuna walked to the center of the flower bed. They looked at each other with an indescribable emotion in their eyes. They looked at each other for a long time without saying a word. On the other side of the stage, the light of the setting sun shone down on them, highlighting the newlyweds in front of the audience. The venue gradually quieted down. Everyone looked at the newlyweds with the setting sun as the background, as if they were waiting for something. Asuna looked at Wu Yin, who was standing in front of her, with a gentle smile on his face. Her eyes started to blur. Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? It's not a dream, Asuna. Wu Yin held Asuna's hand and looked at her beautiful face. Look, there's warmth in my hand. Asuna looked down at their intertwined hands and tightened her grip. A beautiful smile appeared on her face. Yeah, there's warmth. It's hot. It's so warm. Asuna. Wu Yin took a step forward. Thank you for letting me meet you. A tear fell from the corner of Asuna's eye, but she smiled. Thank you, too, for letting me meet you. Wait for me. No matter where you are, I will find you. Okay, I'll wait for you. With that, a ring appeared in their hands at the same time. They then opened their personal interface and applied for marriage. After clicking confirm, they put their rings on each other's hands. Then, they couldn't help but put their heads together. A thunderous applause sounded in the venue. Chapter 708. Nighttime. Inside the room, Wu Yin and Asuna hugged each other as they slept on the bed. Hanging on the wall in front of them were the wedding dresses they wore during the wedding. It's almost like a wedding photo. The wedding was perfect in every way except for the fact that they forgot to take a wedding photo. So, under Asuna's suggestion, the couple hung their wedding dresses on the wall to save them the trouble of taking a new wedding photo. Asuna leaned her body against Wu Yan's chest as much as possible. She waved her hand in front of her face while humming a song. Asuna's in a good mood. On her hand, there's a ring, a wedding ring. Unlike Asuna, who's glowing, Wu Yan's face is filled with fatigue. His wine-red eyes are filled with tears from yawning. Today, not only did he attend his own wedding ceremony, but he also dealt with the guests for the whole day. He even got up much earlier than usual in the morning. After a whole day of traveling, exhaustion was tormenting him all the time. It made him feel very miserable. After all, he was a very lazy person. If it wasn't for his own wedding, he probably wouldn't go even if he was offered money. When he thought about the number of wives he had in the other world and the fact that he would have to hold a wedding with them one day, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle as he sighed in his heart. He doesn't know if he's lucky or bitter. Speaking of happiness, he doesn't like this kind of big occasion at all. If possible, he doesn't want to participate. It's just tiring himself to death. It's a bitter life. Who else can have so many lovers like him? And all of them are gorgeous? She believed that no one was happier than her. This kind of contradiction made Wu Yan's heart very conflicted. Of course, conflicted is conflicted. He'll still have what he needs. Sooner or later, he'll hold a grand wedding for all the girls. After making up his mind, Wu Yan looked down at Asuna, who's in his arms. She's looking at the wedding ring in her hand. He shook his head. He rubbed his cheek against her scalp. Okay, stop looking. You'll have plenty of time to look at it in the future. Hearing this, Asuna didn't put down her hand. Instead, she bumped Wu Yan's chin with her head and muttered, If only I had time to look at it. Wu Yin tilted his head in confusion. He looked at Asuna. Is the wedding ring going to grow wings and fly away? Or does it have durability and will disappear sooner or later? It's not like that. Asuna sighed faintly. Her hand stopped shaking, but her eyes were still staring at the wedding ring. But when I think about how this ring will disappear after Sao clears the dungeon, I feel a little reluctant. Wu Yin smiled bitterly and stroked Asuna's hair. If you can't bear to part with it, I'll buy you an identical one when we return to the real world. Asuna didn't look at the ring. She looked at Wu Yin instead. Really? Of course it's real. Wu Yin rolled his eyes and said in a speechless manner, Do I look like someone who would joke about something like this? You don't look like one. Asuna pursed her lips and turned her head away from the other side. But I didn't say I'm going to accept your ring. Huh? Wu Yin was confused. What do you mean? That's right. That's what I meant. Asuna glanced at Wu Yin. She grabbed one of his hands and started playing with it. I agreed to marry you in the game, but I didn't agree to marry you in the real world. Of course I can't accept your wedding ring. Wu Yin finally understood. That's right. It's the same as the game. Giving a wedding ring in the real world is the same as proposing. However, it's different from the game world. In the real world, marriage is a lifelong thing. Asuna is only 17 years old. How could she accept his ring so easily? If he's not mistaken, Asuna wants him to propose to her in the real world as well. Right? Wu Yin shook his head and pretended to sigh. I see. Then I won't send you off. Asuna, who was playing with Wu Yan's hand, suddenly stopped. She raised her head and glared at him. How dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? Wu Yin puffed out his chest. You said you don't want it? I didn't say I don't want it. Asuna shouted. I just said I can't accept it. If you can't accept it, doesn't that mean you don't want it? It's not that I don't want it. Then you want it? Yes, that's not it either. Then you don't want it. Wu Yin sighed and turned his head away sadly. Asuna's heart ached when she saw this. She quickly put her arms around Wu Yan's neck. I didn't say I don't want it. I want it. I want it. I want it, okay? Is that so? Wu Yin turned around with a sly smile on his face. Since you said you want it, I will be merciful and give it to you. Asuna knew that Wu Yin was toying with her when she saw the look on Wu Yan's face. How dare you? Asuna gnashed her teeth, and she pounced on Wu Yin. She bit down on Wu Yan's ear with her peachy lips. I'm going to bite you to death. Wu Yin panicked when he saw Asuna trying to bite his ear. He quickly grabbed hold of her. What? Are you trying to kill your husband? Asuna ignored him and continued to bite Wu Yan's ear. However, Asuna's stamina is no match for Wu Yan's stamina. Since she couldn't bite Wu Yan's ear, Asuna immediately changed her target. She bit Wu Yan's hand that was on her body. Wu Yin was so scared that he waved his hands frantically. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Although he knew Asuna was childish at times, he never heard of her biting people. Whether it was in the original novel or in this world, no. I've already been bitten by Asuna once the two started messing around on the bed. To make Asuna behave, Wu Yin even tickled Asuna. Asuna laughed so hard that she almost choked on her own breath. Not long after, the two of them stopped while gasping for breath. When they stopped, the two of them immediately realized that something was amiss. Asuna's back was facing Wu Yin. She was leaning against Wu Yan's chest. Wu Yin, on the other hand, was holding Asuna in his arms. His hands went under her armpits and reached up to grab Asuna's plump breasts. The two of them froze in an instant. Wu Yin was the first to react. He looked at Asuna, who had a stiff expression on her face. Her soft and supple body made his heart itch for action. Asuna's body fragrance kept drifting into Wu Yan's nose. Her soft body was leaning against his chest. Wu Yin could clearly feel every inch of her skin, every whiff of her fragrance, and that deadly touch. Gradually, he couldn't hold it in anymore. His hands slowly began to knead Asuna's plump breasts. The sudden stimulation made Asuna moan involuntarily. She finally recovered from this sudden incident. Asuna's face turned red. A burning sensation spread from her chest to every part of her body. Her body started to soften and her heart started to panic. She quickly grabbed Wu Yan's hands and said angrily, "WH, what are you doing, Asuna?" Wu Yan licked his lips. His hands didn't stop rubbing her breasts. Asuna moaned in response. "We are a married couple now. Shouldn't we do something?" Asuna understood what he meant. But before she could say anything, Wu Yan flipped her over and pressed her under his body. Not long after, the sound of panting and moaning could be heard. Chapter 709. Wu Yan had a good night's sleep. When he woke up, his whole body felt limp and numb. It felt like he took some kind of poison. He moaned in pleasure. This feeling is 1,000 times more comfortable than his usual morning stretch. He shifted his body slightly and leaned against the headboard. He glanced at the unusually clear weather outside the window. A comfortable smile slowly crept onto his face. "Looks like today is going to be a good day." Retracting his gaze from the window, he looked down at Asuna's chest. She was breathing rhythmically. Her chest was moving up and down like a kitten. She looked just like her usual self. It's a pity that her smooth shoulders are exposed outside the quilt. Her slightly red skin and her blushing face with a teardrop on it are telling others that last night wasn't a peaceful night. Wu Yan's hand slowly slid down her back. He could feel her smooth and soft skin at close range. Wu Yan's heart was calm. He even felt a little bit of joy. The heavens took pity on Wu Yan. 2 years of single life in SAO. Wu Yan had never been separated from the girls for such a long period of time. Ever since he had his first pleasure, he had never been alone for such a long period of time. How could Wu Yan not be pissed when he had his fill of meat? Under such circumstances, one can only imagine what kind of punishment Asuna had to endure last night at this moment. For the first time in his life, Wu Yan felt grateful to Kayaba Akihiko, who created this world. He was grateful that Kayaba Akihiko brought back the wonderful feeling of love between a man and a woman in this world. Otherwise, Wu Yan can't even imagine the feeling of marrying such a beautiful woman and not being able to have sex with her. Even though he had sex with Asuna in the game, it was only in the game. But with Asuna's personality, if she doesn't really like him, she won't give him away. If she really doesn't like him, Asuna won't give in even if it's in the game. In other words, Asuna is in the game. There's no difference between the game and the real world. The only difference is that Asuna is still a virgin in the real world. But since he got to have sex with her in the game, it shouldn't be too hard for him to do it in the real world. Wu Yan grinned, and he rested his head on Asuna's head. His thoughts started drifting away. It's been 2 years. Based on the time ratio between the dungeon and the Spalier world, it's been 2 weeks in the Spalier world. It's been almost a week, right? How are Chuju, Kotori, Ikaros, Shokoha Misaki, Kumi, Toka, Astria, Flanderchan, and Yoshino? Mikoto, Shokoha Misaki, Kinahata Sai, Frenda, and Takitsubu Riku. How are they doing in the Behemoth Forest? And his younger sisters, were they obedient? I'm not here anymore. I can't cook for them. Are they eating well? I miss them so much. Wu Yan's heart started pounding. He clutched his chest and listened to his own heartbeat. He vaguely heard the girls calling out to him. In the other world, Chuju Kotori, Ikaros, Shokoha Misaki, Kurumi, Toka, Astria, Flanderchan, and Yoshino were playing around in the Spalier World's villa. Mikoto, Shokoha Misaki, Kinuhata Sai, Frenda, and Takitsubu Riku, who were playing with their sisters outside the Behemoth Forest, did the same thing. They clutched their chests, and their thoughts started drifting away. Perhaps this is the true meaning of life, intertwining. No matter where or when they are, they will be able to feel each other's longing, and a soft moan came after who knows how long. Wu Yan, who was lost in his thoughts, came back to his senses. He hid his longing deep in his heart, and a smile appeared on his face as he looked at the source of the sound. Asuna closed her eyes and rubbed her head against Wu Yan's chest. Her beautiful eyes slowly opened. There was a soul-stirring fluctuation in them. Asuna's expression looked so lovable. Wu Yan couldn't hold himself back. He lowered his head, and he planted a big kiss on her cheeks. Being suddenly attacked, Asuna screamed and woke up from her sleep. She quickly raised her head and looked in the direction of the attacker. In the next second, Wu Yan's smiling face appeared in front of her eyes. After blinking her eyes, Asuna finally came back to her senses. She felt herself lying naked in Wu Yan's arms, and the memories of last night came back to her. Her blushing face turned even redder, and Wu Yan's heart started to beat faster. With a red face, Asuna glared at Wu Yan and pinched Wu Yan hard. Wu Yan howled. His face, which had been smiling proudly, became slightly distorted. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." Asuna gritted her teeth, and she punched Wu Yan with her fist. "I just want to hit you, can't I?" Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. "Fine, you're the boss today. You can do whatever you want. That's what you said." Asuna snorted and turned her head away, her body gently twisting. "I'm hungry. Cook for me." "No problem." Wu Yan answered without hesitation. He hugged Asuna tightly and stood up from the bed. Ah! Her body was completely exposed to the air. Asuna shrieked as she shielded her vitals. Her face turned red as she yelled at Wu Yan. "What are you doing?" "Nothing much." Wu Yan grinned. He raised an eyebrow at Asuna. "I just want to hug you, can't I?" "You?" Asuna bit her lips in embarrassment. "But I'm not wearing any clothes." "What's the matter?" Wu Yan said with a straight face. "I'm not wearing anything either. We're both wearing the same thing." Asuna was stunned by such a shameless statement. Is there anyone worse than him in this world? "What?" Asuna started struggling. She tried to break free from Wu Yan's embrace. "Put me down." "No." Wu Yan ignored Asuna. He got off the bed and walked towards the living room. "Let's go. I'm going to cook for you." "Wait. Wait." Asuna struggled even harder. Her face was full of anger and disbelief. "Do you want to run around the house in this state?" "What's the matter?" Wu Yan used his 5-word mantra again and said to Asuna while walking, "It's just the two of us anyway." "I don't want to." Asuna screamed hysterically. She didn't care about protecting her body and raised her hand above her head. A pink light flashed on her hand, and Asuna threw a punch at Wu Yan. Wu Yan was shocked. He didn't expect Asuna to attack him so directly. He quickly turned his head and dodged the attack. Taking advantage of this opening, Asuna jumped out of Wu Yan's arms and landed on the ground not far away. She crossed her arms in front of her and glared at Wu Yan with a red face. "Well, you actually attacked me." Wu Yan grinned and slowly approached her. "If that's the case, I won't hold back." Asuna screamed when she saw Wu Yan approaching her. She turned around and ran, but the wolf immediately chased after her. Chapter 710. It's been almost a day since the unprecedented wedding in Sao. Even though it's only been a day, the news of the wedding had spread like wildfire throughout Aincrad. It's become a topic of conversation for many players during their free time. When they're leveling up or doing their daily activities, they couldn't help but bring up yesterday's wedding to show how big of an impact it had on the players. In hotels, public places, and even on the streets, players can hear people talking about yesterday's wedding every once in a while. Even players passing by in a wild are talking about it. Apparently, there's not a single player in this game who doesn't know about yesterday's wedding. Of course, the main topic of discussion is the wedding, but the discussion isn't necessarily positive. There are those who are bashing Asuna, those who are Asuna's fans, those who are jealous of Asuna, those who are jealous of Asuna, those who are jealous of Wu Yan, those who scolded Wu Yan for wasting his money. In short, there are all sorts of people who are interested in Asuna. But no matter what, yesterday's wedding was going to be the talk of the town for some time to come. It's worth mentioning, some of the players still couldn't accept the news of Asuna's marriage. They even formed a protest group to protest against yesterday's wedding. They want Wu Yan to release their beloved Asuna. It's as if Wu Yan is forcing Asuna to marry him. What's even more surprising is that quite a number of players responded to their protest. Isn't this too much of a scam? Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard about this from today's newspaper. He couldn't stay calm anymore. Am I guilty of marrying a wife? What kind of logic is this? Aha! Asuna, who was cleaning the living room, happened to pass by Wu Yan. She poked her head out from behind the sofa and saw the news on the newspaper. She couldn't help but giggle. She patted Wu Yan's shoulder. Asuna teased. Did you see that? Everyone thinks that I was forced to marry you, so you should feel honored to be able to marry me. Wu Yin rolled his eyes at Asuna and said, Yes, yes, yes. I'm very honored. Really, I didn't expect your support team to be this crazy. Is it worth it? Who knows? Asuna didn't answer. He continued to tidy up the huge hall, which could be seen clearly. Asuna seems to like this kind of life very much. Otherwise, she wouldn't have cleaned up the living room. In SAO, cleaning can be omitted. Because of the settings, no matter where the house is, it will never be stained with dust. Just like the player's clothes, they will never get dirty, so there's no need to clean the house. After all, the main theme of this world is the game, and the main focus is the strategy. So, it's natural to avoid such chores as much as possible. However, Asuna seems to enjoy cleaning up the house. It's not that the house is dirty, but she likes the feeling of living. From Asuna's words, she doesn't seem to care about the fact that she's so popular with the players. This is natural. Asuna is not the kind of person who likes the light and the stage. Before Wu Yin met her, Asuna only cared about the game. She didn't even know when she started to have fans. Therefore, for those so-called fans who clamored to liberate her, although Asuna didn't disdain them, she simply waved her hand and forgot about them. At most, she would use them to spice up her newlywed life. Contrary to Asuna, Wu Yin browsed through the newspaper in an annoyed manner. These bastards, do they think it's that hard for Asuna to marry me? How can they think of forcing me to marry her? Give me back my Asuna and make it sound like they want me to pay with my life. Don't think I don't know who started this. Isn't it the members of Knights of the Blood who are dissatisfied with Asuna's resignation? Don't let me find out who you are. Asuna didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard Wu Yan's nagging. She also knows that her resignation from Knights of the Blood has caused a lot of dissatisfaction in the guild, and those so-called fans are the most radical. After all, they often see her in the guild. Of course, Asuna doesn't regret quitting Knights of the Blood. She wasn't happy in the guild at all. Although quitting will slow down the clearing process and delay the time she can leave this world, Asuna doesn't want to leave this world anymore. Just like what Wu Yin said before, Asuna wants to enjoy life. She wants to enjoy this peaceful life with her lover by her side. Maybe she will go to the front lines again in the future, but she won't be so enthusiastic about it anymore. The only reason she went to the front lines is to make sure she doesn't fall behind too much in terms of levels. Okay, let's ignore those people. Asuna walked behind Wu Yin and pulled Wu Yin up from the sofa. Then, she pushed him towards the door. We're almost out of ingredients. Go buy some back. Huh? There's nothing left? Wu Yin turned around in surprise. Normally, he would have a lot of ingredients in his inventory. How come there are no more of them? Asuna puffed up her cheeks and said, Did you forget that you haven't been out in the wild for a week because of the wedding? In a week's time, all the ingredients would have been gone. What about you? Wu Yin asked curiously. Don't you have a lot of ingredients in your inventory as well? It's 2 people now, not just one. Asuna put her hands on her waist and started scolding him. 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals a week. I'm surprised that our ingredients can last this long. Asuna pushed Wu Yin towards the door again. So go buy some back. Yes, 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 I got it. Wu Yin sighed, and he walked out the door grumpily. Seriously, isn't it your job to buy ingredients? Who is your wife here? Remember to come back early. Asuna waved at him with a smile. Yes. Wu Yin turned around and walked out of the forest. Wu Yin opened his character interface and checked the items in his inventory while walking slowly towards the nearest town. Wu Yin spent a lot of money to make his and Asuna's wedding a beautiful one. It was such a grand wedding. Whether it was the venue, the guests' food and drinks, the chefs and ingredients, the tailors and the staff who came to help with the wedding, all of these things required money. That's why their wedding attracted so much attention. Even someone as rich as Wu Yin spent almost all of his money on the wedding. What's left might seem like a lot to other players, but compared to what he used to have, it's like the difference between heaven and earth. And that's after he married Asuna. They shared the same inventory, money, and even Asuna sold her house on the 61st floor. Otherwise, he would have even less money. Well, I guess it's enough to just eat and wait for death to come. Wu Yin pursed his lips, and he closed the interface. But I still need to buy items. Chapter 711. Come take a look. Newly crafted equipment. It's definitely the best. Selling materials. Selling materials. Crafting equipment. Crafting weapons. Crafting potions. We have materials for all professions. Cheap and good. Come and take a look if you need items. Recovery items. Quest items. We have everything you need. I just got a crystal item. I sold it at a low price. Buy it. Hey, did you hear that? It's a crystal item. Where? Where's the crystal item? Let's go. Let's go and take a look. Shouts and shouts came from all directions. It's as noisy as a wet market. Wu Yin couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Stalls like this could only be set up on lower floors like the 22nd floor. Even if there were people who set up stalls on higher floors, they would be looked down upon by others. This was because the average player's level and money were still pretty good. If they wanted to do business on higher floors, they would do so in their own shops. Only players with low levels and money will set up stalls. Because of this, it's natural for lower floors to have a wet market like this. Wu Yin pursed his lips as he listened to the shouts and shouts around him. Most of the shouts and shouts are a bit exaggerated. For example, the newly crafted equipment is only suitable for players around level 30. The quality of the materials and items are also relatively low. It's only suitable for players on the 30th floor and below. For Wu Yin, he'll probably just throw it away when he kills monsters. Under such circumstances, Wu Yin is starting to doubt if he made the right decision by coming here to buy ingredients. He has a wife with a huge appetite at home. She won't be happy eating anything that isn't made with rare ingredients. Is it really possible to buy rare ingredients here? This is Wu Yan's own fault. It's fair to say that Asuna's appetite is all because of him. Without him providing her with rare ingredients and delicious dishes every day, Asuna wouldn't be so picky about her food. After all, she was still a poor girl who could be won over by a hamburger. The only thing worth paying attention to is the stall selling crystal items. Crystal items aren't like equipment or materials. They're extremely valuable no matter which floor you're on. To put it bluntly, the price of a transfer crystal is equivalent to the total price of most of the items in this stall. On the higher floors, there are many cases of top players struggling to gather enough money to buy a crystal item. To be honest, Wu Yin was surprised to see a crystal item being sold on the 22nd floor. Wu Yin looked at the stall that was filled with people and saw the owner of the stall who was holding a crystal. He looked very proud of himself. As for the transfer crystal, it's not that Wu Yin doesn't have the money to buy it. Although he spent a lot of money, it's more than enough for him to buy a crystal item. The main reason is that he doesn't need the transfer crystal. He has more than 10 transfer crystals in his inventory. He even has a recovery crystal that can restore full HP in one go. He even has at least 3 of them. If it's a recovery crystal, maybe Wu Yin will buy it. But it's just a transfer crystal, he doesn't care about it. Although the 22nd floor is one of the lower floors, the ingredients here are more than enough to catch his eye. Unlike some of the more precious items that can only be found on higher floors, the ingredients can be found on any floor. It's not like there aren't any rare ingredients here. Although their levels aren't that high, they aren't low either. When he passed by the stalls selling ingredients, Wu Yin would buy any rare ingredients they see. He swept up most of the rare ingredients in the town. The stall owners somehow found out that there's a rich man buying rare ingredients. They all put up their precious ingredients and earned a lot from Wu Yin. In the end, both sides were satisfied with the outcome. Wu Yin isn't interested in selling anything other than food ingredients. This made the other stall owners hate themselves for not selling food ingredients. It didn't take long for Wu Yin to buy a lot of rare ingredients. It's enough for him and Asuna to eat for a while. Let's leave it at that for now. Wu Yin smacked his lips, and he counted the ingredients in his inventory. He noticed that the ingredients he bought are shrinking in size. Wu Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That is Asuna. Wu Yin, who was counting the ingredients, didn't notice that the player selling the transfer crystal has been watching him ever since he started buying the ingredients. When he saw that Wu Yin didn't move from his spot, he rolled his eyes and said something to the players around him. The players left with a disappointed look on their faces. He then put away his stall and walked towards Wu Yan. "My lord," a voice suddenly came from behind. Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat, and he started to feel uneasy. Could it be that someone recognized him? When the owner of the voice saw that Wu Yan didn't turn around, he walked up to Wu Yan and raised the crystal in front of him with a smile. "My lord, are you buying crystal?" Wu Yan subconsciously took a step back. When he got a good look at the person's face and heard what he said, Wu Yan sighed in relief. He thought it was the Grim Reaper from the FFF Resistance Association or something. "No need." Wu Yan shook his head and was about to leave when the stall owner stopped him. "How about this, sir? As long as you buy my teleportation crystal, I'll give you a piece of information about a special monster as a bonus." "Special monster?" Wu Yan stopped, and he turned around to face the owner of the stall. "What kind of special monster?" "This." The stall owner smiled embarrassedly and gently raised the crystal item in his hand. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and pursed his lips. "How much is it?" The stall owner immediately said. 100,000 soar. 100,000 so. Wu Yan looked at him with a smile and crossed his arms. "Do you think I'm a fat sheep?" "The crystal is very expensive, but it's worth at most 40,000 to 50,000 core. 100,000 COR is enough to buy a recovery crystal." The stall owner seems to know that his demand is a bit too much, but he didn't lower the price. Instead, he pretended to be dumb and smiled. He saw the whole process of Wu Yan squandering his money to buy the ingredients. That's why he came looking for Wu Yan. Naturally, he wants to get a good price. Wu Yan got impatient when he saw the stall owner smiling like an idiot. He gave him 100,000 COR, and the stall owner was overjoyed. "Thank you, my lord." The stall owner hurriedly handed the crystal to Wu Yan. Everyone could see the joy on his face. Wu Yan sighed. "Tell me, what kind of special monster is it?" "Oh, it's like this." The stall owner calmed down and said sneakily. "I heard that there's a little girl floating in the forest ahead. She's dressed in white and seems to be a spirit-type monster. There's no monsters in that forest, so don't you think it's strange that there's a monster here?" "Huh?" Wu Yan was amused. "Just because you saw a girl floating in the forest, you're saying it's a special monster?" "My lord, you don't know," the stall owner said exaggeratedly. "Someone once checked her up close, but they didn't see any player or monster icons. She didn't even have a HP bar, so someone speculated that she's a special monster. Maybe she can drop some super rare items." Wu Yan was dumbfounded when he heard this. "White clothes, no icon, little girl. Could it be?" Chapter 712. Oomph, 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 oomph. In the kitchen, Asuna processed the ingredients she got from Wu Yan's inventory. She placed them on a plate beside her. She used the kitchen knife to cut the ingredients evenly with the help of the system. She even hummed a little tune. She looked like she's in a good mood. Although Asuna's cooking isn't as good as Wu Yan's, she didn't want her husband to be in charge of the family's 3 meals a day. After all, it's her duty as a wife. Even if she really likes Wu Yan's cooking, she doesn't want to hand over her job to him. After processing the ingredients she just took out, Asuna started cooking. She looked at the delicious dishes that were about to come out of the oven and put her hands on her waist. "My cooking is pretty good too," although she said that, Asuna's expression was a little bit guilty. It seems like she doesn't believe in herself. In fact, Asuna's cooking is pretty good. At least, compared to those so-called professional chefs in this world, her cooking is definitely in the top 3. Not to mention, she also made some homemade sauces. Her cooking skills are not something those chefs who only know how to improve their cooking skills can compare to. She's qualified to be called the best chef in SAO. Unfortunately, she met a monster like Wu Yan. She's destined to suffer a setback. Under the system's convenient settings, a table of delicious dishes was quickly prepared. Asuna brought the dishes to the table. After placing her and Wu Yan's utensils on the table, Asuna took off her gloves and apron. She sat on the sofa and looked at the beautiful scenery outside the window while drinking black tea. The lake in the distance rippled little by little. The green forest filled Asuna's sight. The mountains and the blue sky complemented each other. Even though Asuna has seen this many times, she still felt happy. Asuna muttered with a smile on her face. This is great. I should have moved here a long time ago, girl. You've only been here for a day, and you're already regretting that you didn't live with a certain someone before? You're the Flash, Asuna. Oh, it didn't take long for Asuna to withdraw her gaze from the scenery outside the window. She turned to look at the entrance with a pout on her face. Why aren't you back yet? Just as he finished speaking at the door, a familiar voice entered Asuna's ears. Asuna, open the door for me. Yen? Asuna was surprised. She stood up and walked toward the door. What's wrong? Asuna asked as she walked towards the door. Can't you drive it yourself? He heard Asuna's words. Wu Yin laughed bitterly once again. My hands are busy right now. Asuna was even more confused now, but she didn't slow down. She quickly moved to the door and opened it. Wu Yan's figure appeared in front of Asuna's eyes. Asuna was stunned. That's... Asuna looked at Wu Yan in shock. To be more precise, she looked at Wu Yan's back. A person. That's right, there's a person on Wu Yan's back. A girl about 10 years old was lying on Wu Yan's back. Her eyes were closed, and her hands were hanging by her side. Asuna didn't know if she was asleep or unconscious. Only a faint breath could be heard from her body, proving that she was still alive. Wu Yan, on the other hand, is carrying her with both hands behind his back. He didn't open the door because he's afraid that he'll fall if he loosens his grip. However, his expression is a bit strange. It's hard to tell what he's thinking. What's going on? Asuna quickly ran to Wu Yan's side. She put her hands on the girl and looked at Wu Yan. What's wrong with her? Wu Yan bitterly smiled and shook his head. I'll explain later. Let's go in first. Asuna nodded, and together with Wu Yan, she brought the girl into her house. Inside the room, Wu Yan gently put down the little girl on his back and carried her to the bed. He released a sigh of relief and looked at the little girl who was fast asleep. She had a head of long black hair with neat bangs covering her forehead. Her small face was exceptionally delicate and beautiful. Although she looked a little immature, it wasn't hard to see that when she grew up, her face wouldn't be inferior to Asuna's. She was already in the embryonic stage of beauty. From head to toe, only a pure white dress was on her body. It was very monotonous. Although her expression was very peaceful, her pair of eyebrows were slightly furrowed. It could be seen that in her sleep, she did not feel very good. Wu Yan looked at the cute little girl. He glanced at Asuna and then looked around. A strange look appeared in his eyes. Asuna didn't know about this little girl's identity, but Wu Yan is very clear about it. Yui. In the original work, Yui fainted in the forest on the 22nd floor. She was rescued by Kirito and Asuna. She was brought back to this mansion and thought of as their daughter. It's because he knew who Yui is that Wu Yan was able to deduce that the special monster was Yui from the stall owner's words. He went to find her and brought her back. Wu Yan's expression became a bit strange as he went through all the information about Yui in the original work. In the original work, Kirito and Asuna found Yui and brought her back. Then, they accidentally found such a cute daughter. Now, he's the one who brought her back. In the original work, this house was Kirito and Asuna's honeymoon place. Now, it's his and Asuna's new home. Plus, there's Yui. Wu Yan suddenly felt like he's a terrible person. Asuna, Yui, this house, dual swordsman, elucidator, they all belong to the main characters in the original work, but now they belong to him. He didn't know that he did so many bad things to Kirito. Luckily, Kirito already has Liz. It seems like he'll have to treat him better in the future. Hey Yen. Asuna didn't know that Wu Yan's mind was in a mess. She pulled Wu Yan's sleeve and looked at Yui worriedly. What happened to her? Wu Yan quickly collected his thoughts and shook his head. I don't know. She was already like this when I saw her. Wu Yan told Asuna about how he went to the forest and found the unconscious Yui from the stall owner. Of course, Wu Yan didn't tell her that he knew it was Yui. He told her that he wanted to see the special monster, and that's how he found Yui. She's a player, right? Asuna's brows furrowed tightly. Why would she pass out? Plus, she's so young. In SAO, only players are allowed to enter other players' houses. NPCs are not allowed to enter other players' houses, unless it's a special quest. Otherwise, this is the game setting. Since Wu Yan can bring Yui into his house, That means she's not an NPC. As for a quest, if there is one, there should be a quest notification in their quest list. Up until now, there hasn't been any signs of a quest, so that means it's not a quest. The only explanation is that she's a player. But why doesn't she have an icon? Asuna lowered her head in confusion. Other than inanimate objects and items, players, monsters, NPCs, and tame monsters all have an icon above their head. They also have a HP bar, but this girl doesn't have one. Is she an inanimate object? Chapter 7:13. There's no icon on Yui, so it's not a bug. The reason why there's no icon is because Yui isn't a player, NPC, or monster. She's an AI in SAO, a consulting AI that's responsible for maintaining the mental health of the players. In other words, Yui isn't a human. Wu Yin rubbed his forehead, and he looked at Yui, who was lying on the bed. He started mumbling to himself. As a consulting AI, Yui's job is to interact with the players and solve their psychological problems. However, when SAO turned into a death game, Yui was deprived of the right to interact with the players. She's basically a psychiatrist, but she was deprived of the right to interact with the players. Due to the fact that she didn't have the right to carry out her duties, the AI finally made a mistake and left the place she's been living in and appeared in the outside world. In the original work, Kirito and Asuna had a lot of negative emotions because of this game. However, Kirito and Asuna had a lot of positive emotions. This attracted Yui, who was in a state of confusion, and she couldn't help but wander around them. Later, Kirito and Asuna discovered her. Although Wu Yin isn't Kirito, he doesn't have any negative emotions towards SAO. Asuna might have some negative emotions in the past, but now that she's married to Wu Yin, she's no longer looking at the world with prejudice. She's starting to enjoy life, and with Wu Yin's company, her negative emotions are naturally gone. Yui appeared on the 22nd floor, just like in the original work. She was attracted by the positive emotions, but this time, Kirito is replaced by Wu Yin. Wu Yin tidied up Yui's bangs and looked at her frowning brows. He sighed with heartache. Yui looks like she's about 10 years old, but she's actually less than 2 years old. She was created when SAO was created, and she has never been in contact with the outside world. Even if she has a lot of common sense and knowledge, she's still a baby if you think about it seriously. A little girl like her doesn't even have the right to interact with the outside world. She's just like Flandre-chan. Wu Yin felt sorry for her. He touched Yui's cheek and said softly, "Rest well. Everything will be fine when you wake up." Yui's frown slowly loosened after she heard Wu Yan's words. Her lips curled into a smile. It's almost like she's smiling as soon as heavy heart lightened up a bit as she watched this scene unfold. She walked over to Wu Yin and she leaned into his embrace. However, her eyes were fixated on Yui. She should be fine, right? Don't worry. Wu Yin hugged Asuna's waist, and he hugged her even tighter. She's not an NPC, and she doesn't look like a monster. Even if she's a little strange, the fact that she's able to enter our house like a player means that she has her own consciousness. She'll wake up sooner or later. Asuna felt a little relieved after hearing Wu Yan's words. She buried her head into Wu Yan's chest. Why would such a young child appear in SAO? I don't know. Wu Yan closed his eyes. But since we're here, we can't just sit back and watch. Asuna raised her head and nodded. She smiled. Sure enough, Yin is very gentle. Is that so? Wu Yan's face fell, and his expression turned into a naughty one. Didn't you say that I was too rough last night? Asuna blushed and pinched Wu Yan's waist. She said embarrassedly, That's right, you're not gentle at all. You're a bad guy. Oh, am I a bad guy? Wu Yan giggled. He picked Asuna up and tossed her onto the other bed. Then I'll show you how naughty I am. Don't. There's someone else here. Ugh. The next day, Yin. Wake up. Yin. Wu Yin, who was sleeping soundly, woke up with a start, and he shot up like a spring. What's wrong? Is there a fire? Asuna punched Wu Yan's head, waking him up from his daze. She raged at him. You idiot. How can a building in SAO catch fire? That little girl woke up. She woke up. Wu Yin rubbed his head, and he looked at the bed not far away. Yui, who is dressed in white, has woken up. She is lying on her side with her big round eyes. She is looking at the two who are messing around with each other. Her eyes are filled with confusion and curiosity. Wu Yin flinched. He quickly got up from his bed and he ran to Yui. Asuna also got up from her stupor. She got up from her bed and she came to Yui's side. Are you awake? Wu Yin sat on the bed and helped Yui up. Do you feel any discomfort? Yui blinked and tilted her head. She seemed to be thinking about something. She shook her head and mumbled. No, no. Wu Yin frowned. Looks like the AI made a serious error. Even speaking is so difficult for it to do so. Asuna looked at Yui with concern. She hesitated for a moment before asking in a low voice, as if she was afraid that she would scare Yui away. Hey, what's your name? Yui repeated what she did just now. She lowered her head and raised it again. Yui, my name. Yui? Asuna nodded and smiled at Yui. Yui, do you know why you fainted in the forest? Yui looked at Asuna and she shook her head. Asuna frowned when she saw this. Wu Yin thought to himself, if she can't even speak properly, it's only natural that she would lose her memory. I'm Wu Yin. Wu Yin grinned brightly. He straightened his back and pointed at Asuna. Her name is Asuna. She's my wife. Wife? Awuna. Yui opened her big eyes and said with difficulty, Fu. Yin. Wu Yin chuckled and shook his head. He slowed down and said slowly, It's Asuna. Yui pondered for a bit and opened her mouth. Awuna. Fu Yin. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. He exchanged glances with Asuna, and they both helplessly grinned. Well, okay. Wu Yin sighed and shrugged. Yui, you can call me whatever you think is more comfortable with me. Yui tightened the blanket covering her body and twisted her body. After a long time, she let out a shocking cry. Dad, Papa. Wu Yan's expression changed into something spectacular. His lips started twitching. Yui, if you don't mind, you can call me brother, Yui glanced at Wu Yan awkwardly. Wu Yan laughed dryly. Forget it, I'll call you Dad then. Yui grinned when she heard Wu Yan's words. Dad. Yes. Wu Yan smiled and pinched Yui's nose. Dad is here. Wu Yan pulled Yui into his arms, and he made her face Asuna, who was still in a daze. Since I'm your dad, she's your mom. Mom. Yui said without hesitation. Mom. Asuna covered her mouth as she stared at the little girl who called her mother. Something bloomed in her heart. A beautiful smile slowly appeared on her face. Asuna walked in front of Yui and gently hugged her. Mom is here, you mom. Dad. Looking at the two girls hugging each other, Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 714. Asuna doesn't know if it's sympathy or motherly love, but ever since Yui started calling Asuna mother, Asuna's attitude towards Yui has completely changed. Asuna treated Yui as a child that needs to be taken care of, but now she's treating Yui like a family member. Yui's position in Asuna's heart has risen to an unimaginable height. It's almost the same as Wu Yan's. She's only known Yui for a short period of time, but their relationship has warmed up so quickly. Everything in this world is so magical. Scratching his cheek, Wu Yin stood up and waved at Asuna and Yui. Well, no matter what, it's a good thing that Yui is our daughter. Let me cook a big meal to celebrate. Asuna suddenly woke up. She raised Yui and asked with a smile, Are you hungry? Yui rubbed her belly. A confused look flashed through her eyes. She looks like she's wondering what hungry means. Asuna didn't notice this change, but Wu Yin saw it clearly. Could it be that Yui hasn't eaten since she was born? Shaking his head, Wu Yin patted Yui's back. What do you think? Do you want to eat Daddy's cooking? Daddy's cooking is the best in the world. Yui immediately looked at Wu Yin. She nodded her head. The confusion in her eyes turned into anticipation. Maybe it's because she remembered the feeling of hungry, or maybe it's because she pitted the best in the world. Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Asuna also saw the anticipation in Yui's eyes. She didn't want to admit defeat. She protected Yui in her arms like she's protecting a chick. She took a few steps away from Wu Yin, then said to Yui, Yui, don't listen to him. Mommy's cooking is the best. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. His eyes narrowed. He glanced at Asuna and crossed his arms. If I remember correctly, someone admitted defeat a long time ago, right? Asuna choked on her words. Her indignant expression turned weak, but she still retorted, That was in the past. It's already a year ago. The food I make now is definitely better than the food you make. Although that's what she said, Asuna's tone was weak. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that she didn't mean what she said. Wu Yin couldn't help but smile slyly. If that's what you said. Wu Yin walked up to Asuna, took Yui from her arms, rubbed her hair, and said, Then Yui, let Daddy and Mommy cook for you. After you're done eating, you have to tell me whose cooking is better. Okay. Yui nodded happily. The smile on her face was as sweet as honey. It's obvious that she liked the playful atmosphere between Wu Yin and Asuna. Give Yui back to me. Asuna glared at Wu Yin. She blurted out without hesitation. Let's do it. Yui will definitely think that my cooking is better. Who knows? Wu Yin shook his head, patted Yui's butt, and walked out of the room. Let's go, Yui. Daddy will cook you a delicious meal. Okay, wait. Asuna chased after him frantically. Don't you dare take my Yui. Like hell. Yui is mine. No, she's mine. I'm Yui's daddy. I'm Yui's mommy too, so I have a share in Yui too. I don't care. Give Yui back to me. No. You're a bad guy. Whoa. Asuna, don't fight. Daddy. Mommy. Yui. Not long after, Wu Yin and Asuna started cooking under Yui's watchful eyes. They took out all the ingredients they bought yesterday, picked out what they needed, and started cooking in an attempt to win the heart of their newly acknowledged daughter. Maybe it's because of Yui, or maybe it's because she's improved a lot, but Asuna's cooking is much more skillful than before. Her movements are much smoother, and there's even an indescribable aura about her. Wu Yin couldn't help but complain in his heart. Asuna, don't tell me she's become a daughter lover because of this. Anyone who has a daughter as cute as Yui would treat her like a precious jewel. They would hide her in the depths of their heart, afraid that they might hurt her. Yui isn't Wu Yin and Asuna's biological daughter, but it's not hard for them to love her dearly. After all, Yui was simply too cute. Dishes after dishes gradually filled the dining table in the house under the efforts of the two. It was only morning, but the dishes made were much more abundant than at any other time. It was indeed worthy of the name of a big meal. Only when the entire dining table was filled with dishes did the two of them stop sulkily. Come, Yui. Asuna picked up Yui from the sofa and placed her next to her. She picked up a dish and taunted Wu Yin. Try this and see how it tastes. Yui opened her mouth and swallowed the food that Asuna put in her mouth. Then, her eyebrows curved like crescent moons. Delicious. Asuna smiled happily and proudly snorted at Wu Yin as if she had won. Wu Yin expressed his disdain and placed a dish in front of Yui. Here, Yui, try this. Yui lowered her head and looked at the dish in front of her. Her small face suddenly became troubled. She sneaked a glance at Wu Yin and said pitifully, Daddy, hey. Wu Yin paused and tapped Yui's nose in amusement. How old are you? Do you still need me to feed you? Yui twisted her body and pouted her lips. Daddy, hey. Daddy, hey. Okay, I'll feed you. Wu Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He walked to Yui's side and pulled her into his arms and sat down. Really, be careful. You'll never grow up. Yui giggled and opened her eyes wide. She opened her mouth and sucked on the food that Wu Yin fed her. Yui's eyes lit up when she sucked on the food. Daddy. Yui grabbed Wu Yin's clothes. Her eyes were full of hope. More. Yui's words made Wu Yin raise his head and smile. Asuna froze on the spot. Yui's reaction told the two of them who made the best food. Yui. Asuna called out unwillingly. Try it again. Don't let him fool you. What do you mean, fool me? Wu Yin rolled his eyes at Asuna and continued to feed Yui. Come on, let's continue eating. Ignore mommy. Okay. Ignore mommy. Asuna clenched her teeth and stared at Wu Yin as if he was a thief who stole her baby. She almost jumped on him and bit him. No, if it wasn't for the fact that Yui was still on Wu Yin's body, Asuna would have jumped on him and bit him. After all, she has a record of doing that. With a cold snort, Asuna turned her head away. You father and daughter teamed up to bully me, oh. Wu Yin looked at Asuna in surprise, and then looked at Yui. Mommy is angry. She's angry. She's acting like a child. Okay, what? Asuna put her hands on her waist, and the father and daughter laughed. Asuna smiled too, and her expression softened. She looked at Wu Yin and Yui with love in her eyes. Asuna felt like she was the happiest person in the world. Chapter 7:15. This meal was undoubtedly a happy one for the family of three, but it was also undoubtedly a tragic one. Needless to say, with the addition of Yui, the family became more complete. Wu Yin and Asuna's already good relationship improved even more. After the meal, the three of them felt a warmth in their hearts. Nothing could be happier than this. As for the tragedy, it was also very simple. In order to fight back, the young couple had made a whole table full of dishes. Almost half of the ingredients that they had bought yesterday had been used up. There were at least 10 or 20 dishes. With so many dishes, the three of them ate. In the end, of course, they ate until they were full. Was this not a tragedy? It's worth mentioning that Yui has the same potential as Asuna, the potential to be a foodie. She loves to cook, but like Asuna, her stomach can't hold too much food, so she can only be considered half a foodie. Asuna couldn't help but exclaim that Yui is indeed her daughter. She's just like her mother. However, Wu Yin believed that if Asuna and Yui went out together, more people would call them sisters than mother and daughter. In fact, no one would even consider them as mother and daughter. Asuna is only 17 years old, and Yui looks like she's 10 years old. Mother and daughter? Who would believe that? In order to prevent Asuna from being unable to move like last time, and to prevent Yui from walking down Asuna's glorious path, Wu Yin turned into a big eater and finished 2/3 of the food on the table. This prevented the real tragedy from happening. Of course, someone can't walk anymore. Looking at the mess on the table, Wu Yin and Asuna looked at each other and laughed. However, Asuna's smile was very warm, while Wu Yin's smile was very dry. If he didn't do this, he would have pulled his stomach. Are you okay? Asuna started showing concern for Wu Yin. She knew how bad it feels to eat too much. She had experienced it before, and she knew better than anyone how bad it feels to eat too much. I'm okay. Wu Yin grinned and felt the pain in his stomach. He added with a bitter smile, It should be Asuna covered her mouth in amusement. Who asked you to be so enthusiastic? In the end, you did so much. Wu Yin was furious. Who's the one who's sulking in front of Yui just to establish the image of a good mother who can do anything? Asuna awkwardly looked away and pouted. Who asked you to not give in to me? You're really ungentlemanly. You're not even willing to admit defeat in front of your own wife. She poked Wu Yin's shoulder and muttered, Stingy. Yes, yes, yes. I'm a stingy person. I am guilty. Wu Yin said weakly. He shifted Yui, who was in his arms. He didn't want her to touch his uncomfortable stomach. Are you really okay? Father. Yui seemed to be worried. She lowered her head like a child who made a mistake. It's all Yui's fault. That's why Daddy is suffering. This has nothing to do with Yui. Wu Yin patted Yui's head. Mommy and Daddy are too competitive. As long as Yui is happy, eating, Yui nodded and said seriously, Yui is eating very happily. Daddy's cooking is delicious. Mommy's cooking is delicious too. Wu Yin and Asuna looked at each other. Once again, he smiled. After a while, Yui yawned and rubbed her eyes. What's wrong? Asuna moved her head closer to Yui's face. Are you sleepy? Yui nodded and yawned again. She seemed to be really sleepy. Then go to sleep. Wu Yin said, Daddy will hug you. When you wake up, the first person you see will be Daddy and Mommy. Asuna quickly added. Yui smiled happily. She grabbed onto Wu Yan's clothes and leaned her head on Wu Yan's chest. She closed her eyes and fell asleep. Wu Yin patted Yui's back like he was coaxing a child. When Yui breathed evenly, Wu Yin smiled. Eat when you wake up, sleep when you're full. You're really a child. She's a child. Asuna's face turned gloomy. Yui is still so young. Why would she appear in this world? Wu Yin glanced at Asuna and said, "You were only 15 when you entered the game, right? Why would you appear in this world when you were so young?" Asuna was stunned. Wu Yin looked at Yui and his eyes softened. "I believe that when people meet, there will be sparks that are destined to be ignited. I can't explain why Yui appeared in this world, but since she met me, I must thank her. But isn't that unfair?" Asuna's eyes were filled with tears. She said sadly, "When I think about Yui living alone in this world for such a long time, Wu Yan's expression darkened. He looked at Yui with pity. He knew a lot about Biasna. He also knew that Yui's life is far worse than Biasna's imagination. If Yui lived alone in this world for 2 years, it might be a good thing. Wu Yan took a deep breath. He didn't want to tell Asuna about Yui just yet. He comforted her. Maybe Yui didn't live alone. Maybe her parents came in with her too. Then why would Yui appear in the forest alone and faint? Asuna clenched her fists. And it seems like she lost all her memories. SEO wouldn't make a player fall into that state for no reason, right? Maybe something happened to Yui's parents, and she was traumatized. That's why. That's enough, Asuna. Wu Yin interrupted Asuna's speculation and held her hand. You're just speculating. It won't lead to anything in the end. Then what should we do? Wu Yin lowered his head and said helplessly, "Let's do this. I'll contact Kirito. He knows a super powerful information broker. He can help us find Yui's parents." That's what he said, but Wu Yin knew that he wouldn't be able to find anything since he already knew Yui's identity. But he had to do it to make Asuna feel at ease. Asuna nodded and looked at Yui. She put her hand on Yui's cheek and gently stroked it. "Then, before that, we'll take care of Yui," Wu Yin said without hesitation, but Asuna's expression didn't seem right. Wu Yin saw it clearly. He thought for a bit and knew what Asuna was thinking. He shook his head and sighed. "I know you're conflicted. You want to live a peaceful and happy life with Yui. You want Yui to leave this world as soon as possible, but you also want this world to be conquered as soon as possible, but..." Wu Yin changed the topic. His tone became firm. "It doesn't matter which world it is. We're still living in this world. No matter what Yui's life was like before, since she calls me father, she's my daughter." Wu Yin hugged Yui even tighter. He wrapped his hand around Asuna's hand that was caressing Yui's cheeks. They caressed Yui's cheeks together. "What I need to think about is how to make Yui happy from now on. That's all." Asuna's eyes flashed with an indescribable ripple. She stared at Wu Yin. His words echoed in her heart. After a while, a smile finally appeared on her face. "Really?" Asuna leaned her head on Wu Yan's shoulder. She said softly, "I lost again. I lost to you every time. Why can't you just let me win this time?" Of course. Wu Yin hugged both Asuna and Yui. He grinned as he pulled Asuna and Yui into his embrace. "If I can't win against you, how can I protect you?" Asuna closed her eyes. Her smile became sweeter and sweeter. Chapter 716. Nice weather today. It was quite a sunny day. On his way home, Wu Yin was dragging a fainted wild boar behind him. His head was held high, and his chest was puffed out. He looked like he just ate something delicious. Of course, he should be proud of himself. Normal players, even top players, can't get their hands on an S-rank, super rare ingredient even after spending their entire lives. Not only did Wu Yin get his hands on one, he got his hands on it again while he was out shopping. To be able to encounter a monster that can drop super rare S-rank ingredients on a lower floor like the 22nd floor, one has to say, Wu Yan's luck is pretty damn good. Those two gluttonous pigs must be overjoyed, right? Thinking about Asuna and Yui waiting for him at home, Wu Yin couldn't help but smile. He quickened his pace. "Hey, Mommy, when is Daddy coming back?" In the open space in front of the villa, Yui, who was running happily just a moment ago, seemed to be tired. She walked towards Asuna, who was sitting on a recliner, and directly threw herself into her arms. After rubbing her face a few times, she pouted her lips and looked so cute that Asuna couldn't help but smile. She patted Yui's head and smiled. "Don't worry, he'll be back soon, but Jie is hungry," Jie said pitifully. She even rubbed her little belly after saying that. Asuna's attention was drawn to her. She remembered what Wu Yin said yesterday. Eat when you wake up, sleep when you're full. Asuna giggled, picked up Yui, and lifted her over her head. Then Mommy will go cook now. Dinner will be ready when Daddy comes back. Ah. Yui sighed and said regretfully, Isn't Daddy going to cook? Asuna's eyes turned a little hostile. She pinched Yui's cheeks and rubbed them gently. She said angrily, Is Mommy's cooking that bad? Ugh. Yui's cheeks were twisted into various shapes, and she couldn't even speak properly. She continued to look at Asuna with pitiful eyes, trying to beg for mercy. As a result, Asuna seemed to be addicted to rubbing Yui's cheeks. Yui wanted to cry, but had no tears. Yui's inarticulate whimpers and Asuna's giggles filled the air. However, this scene was surprisingly heartwarming. What are you playing? You're having so much fun? A voice sounded not far away from Asuna and Yui. Asuna finally shifted her attention away from Yui, and Yui immediately took the opportunity to escape. She jumped out of Asuna's arms, ran out, and threw herself into the arms of the people who came in. Daddy, Mommy is bullying me. Bully you? Wu Yin blinked and looked at Asuna with a smile. You know how to bully children? Asuna glared at him and pouted. I'm not bullying you, I'm just playing. Wu Yin shook his head and rolled his eyes at Asuna. He took 2 steps forward and held Yui with one hand and pulled the thing on his back to the front with the other. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's see what I got. Wow. Yui's voice was the first to reverberate in the air. What a big bore. This is... Asuna was startled. Her mouth opened a little bit wide, and she said with uncertainty, S-grade ingredients? I found it on my way home. Wu Yin laughed. You guys have something to eat. It really is an S-grade ingredient. Asuna quickly ran to the boar. She exclaimed excitedly. This is great. I thought I'd never get to eat an S-grade ingredient again. S-grade ingredient? Yui tilted her head and pulled Wu Yan's collar. She asked curiously, What's an S-grade ingredient? Wu Yan pinched Yui's nose. How should I put it? Just think of it as something that can be used to make super delicious food. Super delicious food. Yui's big eyes lit up. She turned around and looked at the boar with a pitiful expression. You little foodie. Wu Yan laughed when he saw Yui's expression. Then, he looked at Asuna, who was happily playing with the boar. He rolled his eyes speechlessly. You 2 little foodies, I didn't expect you to learn a paralysis skill. Asuna took out her rapier from her inventory and slashed the boar like it was a kitchen knife. Very well, I haven't dropped an S-grade ingredient before. I'll give it a try today. Wu Yan nodded and stepped back. The boar will drop an S-grade ingredient anyway. It doesn't matter who gets it. Asuna won't be able to get it. At this moment, a few human figures walked over from the wooden bridge in the distance. When the figures of the family of 3 entered their eyes, the shortest one immediately took a few steps forward. He raised a hand and waved it while calling out, Wu Yin and I-san. Asuna and I-san. Bang! Asuna, who was about to finish off the boar, got startled by the sudden noise. Her sword missed its target and it smashed into the ground. Wu Yin flinched. He hugged Yui, who was also flabbergasted as he turned to look at the source of the noise. Wu Yin was even more surprised when he saw who it was. Silica? Kirito? Liz? Lucky? Xian, why are you here? They are Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Silica, and Xian. Kirito walked over and waved his hand with a smile. I'm here to see how your married life is going. What's wrong? Am I not welcome? You're not welcome. Before Wu Yin could say anything, Asuna was the first to voice her dissatisfaction. Oh my god, I was almost scared to death by you guys. You're still the same as before, Asuna. Liz put her hands on her waist and raised her eyebrows at Asuna. Her tone was full of mockery. Even if you're married, you're still wielding swords and guns. You're so violent. Don't pull, don't pull. Asuna quickly shook her head and put away her rapier. I'm not. Okay. Okay, you don't need to explain. Everyone understands. I already said that's not it. Sachi was surprised. She looked at the cowering Yui in Wu Yan's arms. She asked in surprise, Who is this little girl? Everyone also noticed Yui in Wu Yan's arms. They were all stunned. Let me introduce you. Wu Yin lifted his chin, and he placed Yui on the ground. Then he said something that made Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Xian, and Silica flabbergasted. She's my daughter, Yui. Wu Yin pushed Yui in front of everyone. He whispered to Yui. Yui, greet them. Hello. Hello, everyone. Yui shyly greeted them. Her face was full of caution. It was obvious that she's afraid of strangers. Daughter. Looking at Yui, who was standing in front of Wu Yin, the 4 girls and 1 guy were stunned. It's only been a few days since they got married. How did their daughter grow so big in just a few days? Wu Yin bitterly chuckled at this. Well, we'll talk about the details later. You guys came at the right time. Asuna continued. Yin just got an S-grade ingredient. S-grade ingredient? Everyone's attention was successfully diverted. They looked at the wild boar on the ground. The next moment, their eyes widened. Shireen exclaimed in surprise. It's true. I saw it on the ingredient list. Sachi, Sheely, and Liz looked at each other and smiled. Kirito also had a pitiful look on his face. Looks like we came at the right time. Since you guys want to eat, come help me. Wu Yin gave an order. It's rare to have guests. I'll let you guys have a big meal today. Yes. Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Xian, and Sheely responded loudly. Even Asuna and Yui raised their hands. Wu Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 717. So that's how it is. Kirito nodded thoughtfully and looked at the living room. There, Silica, Xian, and Yui were playing with something. Asuna, Liz, and Sachi were in the kitchen, preparing a feast. It's suspicious. Kirito frowned and stared at Yui's body with a troubled expression. There's no icon nor anything that other players should have. Is this a bug? Who knows? Who knows? Wu Yin pursed his lips and didn't explain further. He explained why Yui is here and why she's his daughter. As for Yui's true identity, it's best not to reveal it to anyone for the time being. With Kirito's cautious personality, if he told Kirito about Yui's identity, he might suspect Yui and think that she was created by Kayaba Akihiko to get close to him. After all, Wu Yin is the strongest player in SAO, and he can clear every floor by himself. It's understandable that Kayaba Akihiko created an AI to get close to Wu Yin. If Wu Yin doesn't know the original story, but knows Yui's true identity, he might have the same suspicion. What are you going to do then? Kirito propped his head up with his hand as he looked at Wu Yin. Are you going to take care of Yui until you clear the dungeon? Yeah, I really want to. Wu Yin shrugged helplessly, but Asuna is worried about Yui. She said that if Yui has a family member with her, she won't be able to find Yui. She'll be worried if she can't find Yui. You're right. Kirito nodded. Do you need my help? Okay. And in. Wu Yin turned around and leaned against the wooden fence. Don't you know a powerful information broker? Ask her to dig up Yui's information. That being said, Wu Yin didn't hold out any hope. With Yui's status, no matter how good that informant is, he wouldn't be able to dig up any real information on Yui. If it wasn't for the fact that Asuna was worried about Yui, Wu Yin wouldn't be able to do anything. If Asuna wasn't worried about Wu Yin, he wouldn't do anything unnecessary. That's not a problem. Kirito opened his personal interface and sent out an email. But she's expensive. You should be prepared to be ripped off. Wu Yin's face fell when he heard Kirito's words. I've squandered half of my assets for the wedding. Now I have 2 more mouths to feed. My wallet has already started sounding the alarm. You must ask her to give me a discount. What's the matter? With your skills, you can make money if you want. Kirito said gloatingly. Then he sighed. If only Liz could cook as well as Asuna. I'd be more than willing to cook for her. I don't know if all blacksmiths are that rough. Delicate work like cooking is a problem for Liz. It's a disaster for me. Kirito's shoulders drooped in sorrow. He looked like he was being tortured. I'm afraid Liz will be angry if I don't eat. Sometimes I can't even go out and buy food. Kirito looked at Kirito. Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Is Liz's cooking that bad? Well, it's not that bad. Kirito scratched his head. It's just that she's never practiced cooking before. She has to start from scratch. With her proficiency, the food she makes is only slightly better than black bread. Oh, is that so? Wu Yin narrowed his eyes and hugged Kirito's shoulder. You've already started to train your cooking skills. Tell me honestly, are you guys living together? Kirito's expression turned awkward. It's just recently. We started living together after you guys got married. It seems like she was influenced by Asuna. She felt that her best friend is already married, but she's only dating. She's not happy about it, so that's why she's speeding up? Wu Yin looked at Kirito with disdain. You're not a man, are you? You've been dating Liz for a year, and you're only living together now? Other couples would have done what they should have done by now. Hearing this, Kirito was a little angry. Do you think everyone can get married in a flash like you? You didn't even have the guts to confess a week ago, and now you have a daughter. Wu Yin was speechless. Fine, fine. Wu Yin let go of Kirito's shoulder. He sounded bored. Then when are you going to marry Liz? You can't always be like this, right? There's no need to rush. Kirito turned his head away embarrassedly. We don't have to get married. It's not a bad idea to continue dating like this. If Liz hears you, she's going to sleep on the floor tonight. Hey, what are you thinking? Liz and I sleep in separate rooms. We don't sleep in the same room. Are you serious? Wu Yin was shocked. You're already living in the same room, and you didn't seize the opportunity to push Liz away. Push. Kirito jumped up and moved 5 meters away from Wu Yin. How could I push her away? What are you thinking? That's a big reaction. Wu Yin's mouth twitched. Don't tell me you've never thought about this. Of course I haven't. Kirito raised his voice. I'm only 17. I'm underage. I'm even younger than Asuna. How could I possibly think about this? Wu Yan's expression turned awkward. He forgot that Kirito is only 17 years old. He's still a pure and innocent kid. It's a bit too early for him to say that he's going to push her down. No wonder he's still so unromantic even after getting married in the original work. There were even cases where he backed down at the last minute. It's time for Kirito to wake up. I say, Kirito. Wu Yin sighed and shook his head. It's time for you to grow up. Well, what do you mean by that? Kirito's eyebrows twitched. He couldn't stay calm anymore. You're not asking me to. That's right. Wu Yin straightened his back. His words made Kirito want to run away. Tonight, you go push Liz down. Kirito's face turned red, then black, then white, and then green. His face was full of all kinds of colors, and it was incredibly colorful. Don't tell me you don't dare. Wu Yin sneered at Kirito from the corner of his eye. If you don't dare to do it in the game, I'm going to suspect that you have a problem in that area. You have a problem in that area? Kirito was furious, but he quickly calmed down. He looked around and whispered, Hey Yin, don't tell me you've already done something to Asuna. Of course I did. Wu Yin didn't try to hide it. In fact, he was a little arrogant. Asuna is such a seductress. Who can stay in bed with her every night and still not turn into a wolf? Wu Yin paused and looked at Kirito. No, maybe there really is. Kirito chuckled awkwardly and shrugged weakly. I suddenly feel like I've failed, but Kirito's tone changed. You have a beautiful other half like Asuna and a cute daughter like Yui. If it were me, I wouldn't even be able to dote on them. Wu Yin looked at Kirito with an odd expression. He put his hand on Kirito's shoulder, and he said in a serious tone, Kirito, I'll treat you better in the future. What are you talking about? Hey, what are you two doing over there? Liz's voice echoed in the hall. The food is ready. Come in. Chapter 718. In the past, the wooden mansion in the depths of the forest used to be very cool and refreshing before the female owner came. The male owner was the only one living here. He often went to the labyrinth area at the front lines and would only come back at night. He would fall asleep as soon as he came back and continue his journey the next day. It was natural for the place to be cool and refreshing. Although the quietness was one of the advantages of this place, sometimes people would want to liven things up a bit. It wasn't until Asuna joined the family that the cool and refreshing place started livening up a bit. Yui's addition made the place warm and cozy in just 2 or 3 days. Only then did it feel like a real home. Today, the house finally welcomed some liveliness. Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Cheyenne, and Silica's visit filled the entire wooden mansion with laughter and laughter. All kinds of laughter and playful noises echoed in the forest. Not only did they not ruin the tranquility of this place, They even added some liveliness to the place. Anyone who came here would be infected by this atmosphere. After a day of getting along with each other, Yui was no longer shy. Sachi was gentle and elegant. Silica was lively and cute. Xian was cheerful and generous. And Liz was carefree and easygoing. Yui liked them from the bottom of her heart. Although she didn't like them as much as her parents, it was enough for her to get along with them. Including Asuna, the 6 girls spent the whole day fooling around. The house was filled with their laughter. People who didn't know would think that they were very close. They didn't know that the time they spent with each other was shockingly short. Even Asuna, who was the first one to meet Yui, only knew Yui for 2 or 3 days. She didn't even know that Yui existed before this. As for Wu Yin and Kirito, they became the center of attention. Every girl here had a close relationship with them. Asuna was Wu Yan's wife. Liz was Kirito's girlfriend. Sachi was Wu Yan's little sister. Silica and Xian were good friends. And Yui was Wu Yan's daughter. Their complicated relationships didn't make it difficult for them to get along. Or rather, the situation was the exact opposite. However, judging from Wu Yin and Kirito's bitter laughter, one could tell whether it was a good thing or a bad thing to be entangled by these girls. Time gradually passed amidst the hustle and bustle of the crowd. Night. They also descended. Then, we'll go back first. Standing at the gate, Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Xian, and Shili to bid farewell to the family of 3 on the other side. Wu Yin nodded and smiled. Let's play again next time. That's for sure. Shireen jumped out. She hugged Yui and rubbed her face. I still want to spend more time with my cute little Yui. Yui couldn't help but laugh. Auntie Shireen, it's so itchy, let go of me. I told you not to call me Auntie. Shireen's face stiffened, and her whole face sank. I'm still so young. Don't mind it, don't mind it. Didn't she call me Auntie too? We're sisters with Asuna. Liz patted Xian's shoulder casually. Even Shili is called Auntie. What's there to be unhappy about? Shili pouted. Don't treat me like a kid. Well, Kirito bitterly smiled and scratched his cheek. Didn't she call me uncle too? It's better not to mind it. Sachi walked up and patted Yui's head. Let's play together again next time. Okay. Yui nodded happily. One can imagine how much fun she had today. Then we'll be going. Kirito waved his hand. He held Liz's hand and walked down the stairs with Sachi, Xian, and Shili. Be careful. Asuna waved her hand and shouted. The 5 of them waved at Asuna as a response. Goodbye, Auntie and Uncles. The 5 of them paused for a moment before walking away as if nothing happened. Kirito, don't forget to be mature. Kirito fell to the ground and couldn't get up again. Wu Yin snickered in a mischievous manner. Asuna and Yui couldn't help but feel curious. Is there a special meaning behind being mature? The 2 of them would never know that the so-called mature is actually pushing someone down. Nighttime, inside the room, Wu Yin and Asuna were lying on the bed facing each other. Their eyes were fixed on Yui, who was sleeping between them. They couldn't hide the warm smile on their faces. They couldn't stop grinning at her. She just lay down, and she's already asleep. Asuna patted Yui's back and nudged her chin against Yui's head. It seems like we had a lot of fun today. It can't be helped. Although Shili is older than Yui, they don't look too different in terms of appearance. Xian is so playful. With her taking the lead, Yui will play to her death. As for Liz, she's always going crazy. She's more troublesome than anyone else. Even Sachi rarely hangs out with them. Wu Yin bitterly smiled and shook his head. He pursed his lips in dissatisfaction. Seriously, they don't know how to behave in front of their children. Don't make it sound like they're really old. Asuna rolled her eyes at Wu Yin. Even though they're called Annie, they're not that old. It's not strange that they're a little playful. At least don't make them so crazy. Wu Yin stroked Yui's beautiful black hair and said with a pained expression, Look at Yui. Look at how tired she is. Oh. Asuna tilted her head and said with a smile, You're already playing the role of the father, aren't you? Wu Yin scratched his head awkwardly. Well, it's not like I haven't fantasized about how it would feel to be a father one day. Wu Yin smiled and his eyes were filled with warmth. To be honest, when Yui called me father, I panicked and didn't know what to do. I was worried that if I couldn't be a good father, how could I make Yui happy? Asuna looked at Wu Yan, and her eyes lit up. She reached out and grabbed Wu Yan's hand and smiled sweetly. You've done a great job. Yui has been smiling every day like a happy little bird. I'm sure Yui recognizes you as her father from the bottom of her heart. Wu Yan smiled and rubbed Asuna's head. You too. I'm sure Asuna will be a good mother. Asuna shook her head and moved her head away from Yui's head. She snuggled into Wu Yan's arms. If I was alone, I definitely wouldn't be able to play the role of a mother. But with you by my side, with you as my father, I can feel at ease and take care of Yui as a mother. Without you, I definitely wouldn't know what to do if someone suddenly called me mother. Asuna looked into Wu Yan's eyes. She continued in a soft voice. If it was me, I wouldn't have been able to make Yui happy if I didn't know what to do. But you did. You've always been in front of me, shouldering all the burden for me. You're a good father and a good husband. It's good to have you by my side. Wu Yan's heart warmed. He couldn't help but hug Asuna and Yui. He closed his eyes and spoke slowly. I'm not as good as you think I am, really. Wu Yan didn't wait for Asuna to refute and immediately interrupted her. But I'll be with you. I'll watch you be a good mother and a good wife. Asuna nodded and buried her head in Wu Yan's chest. She hugged Yui and fell asleep with a smile on her face. Wu Yan kissed Asuna's forehead before kissing Yui's hair. He rested his head on the heads of the two girls. Good night. Chapter 719. Papa, it's time to eat. A tender and sweet voice came from the kitchen. It pulled Wu Yan, who was reading the newspaper, back to his senses. He subconsciously turned around and saw Yui moving back and forth between the kitchen and the dining table with the dishes in her hands. Let's wait a little longer. Wu Yan smiled at Yui and continued reading the newspaper. Here, Yui. Asuna handed a plate of food to Yui. This is the last plate. Yui nodded her head and ran towards the dining table. Asuna walked out of the kitchen, took off her apron, and looked at the sofa. Is there anything important? Asuna walked up to Wu Yan and poked her head out to look at the newspaper in Wu Yan's hand. Why are you looking so serious? Is it about the protest association again? Wu Yan rolled his eyes and said in an annoyed tone, What kind of boring association is that? It's okay for them to cause a ruckus in the beginning, but it's been so long since our wedding. Why would they keep causing trouble? Don't they need to level up? Asuna pursed her lips, and she turned her head away. At the end of the day, the protest association is here because of her marriage with Wu Yan. Even if it's because they idolize her, it's because they see her as their idol. Asuna doesn't have a good impression of them. It's not like she didn't want to marry Wu Yan. It's just that she likes him from the bottom of her heart. That's why she married Wu Yan. However, a bunch of people came out of nowhere and demanded that she leave the man she loves. Any other girl wouldn't have a good impression of them, let alone Asuna. It's only because Asuna is used to seeing the faces of these so-called fans that she was able to forget about it in the blink of an eye. If it was Liz, she would have picked up the hammer of her weapon shop and went after the person who dared to oppose her marriage with Kirito. As for Asuna, until today, no one in Sao was able to provoke her to the point where she had to resort to violence. Only Kuradil, who had reported to the Four Seasons Echo concubine, had the ability to do so. Since it's not about the association, why are you taking it so seriously? Asuna asked curiously. I thought you didn't pay attention to your surroundings? Well, there are some exceptions. Wu Yan picked up the black tea and took a sip. Like the current progress of the clearers and the clearers. Normally, I would pay attention to it. Asuna lowered her head and went silent. After a long time, she said then, How is the clearers' progress? We're already exploring the labyrinth area. Wu Yan said without turning his head. Asuna was surprised. The labyrinth area is already being explored? It seemed like only 2 weeks had passed since the 74th floor was cleared. It's been about half a month, right? That's already considered slow. Wu Yan curled his lips. Don't forget when we were on the 74th floor. You took a team to explore the labyrinth area a few days later. It's different back then. We're on the 75th floor now. Asuna said with concern. The 25th floor is a super powerful boss. We should be more careful. Even if I was the one leading the team, I would have sent someone to scout the area before venturing into the labyrinth area. Now that I'm not here, this should be fine, right? You're worrying too much. Wu Yin turned around and looked into Asuna's eyes. Even though you're not here, Heathcliff is now in charge of the clearers. You should know what he's capable of. We don't have to worry about him. Asuna was startled for a second. Then she understood. Almost forgot. Our leader is the one leading the clearers. With his ability, it's not strange for him to clear the labyrinth area in half a month. Oh? You trust your leader that much? Wu Yin rubbed his chin. Aside from a few boss fights, he doesn't usually make a move in a raid, does he? Are you sure he's the one leading the clearers? That's because you haven't seen our leader's true ability. Asuna walked over and sat next to Wu Yin. Her expression suddenly became serious, but her eyes were a little unfocused. Back then, Knights of the Blood was just a small guild. There were only a dozen or so members when the guild was first formed. It's nothing compared to the current Knights of the Blood. But at that time, the members of the guild were already elites among the top players. When I first joined, I was shocked. After that, in order to make Knights of the Blood stronger, our leader began to collect information on the strong players and visited them one by one, inviting them one by one. Asuna glanced at Wu Yin, and she continued with an expressionless face. I heard you were one of them. However, you rejected the guild leader's invitation. You even arrogantly told him, let's talk about it after you bring this guild to the top. That led to the guild leader putting a lot of effort into the guild's development. Wu Yin awkwardly turned his head away. Asuna laughed out loud when she saw this. Well, I wasn't a part of the guild at that time, so I heard about it from other guild members. Asuna patted Wu Yin's chest and stopped smiling. But it's a fact that our leader was very dedicated to the development of the guild. I don't know how our leader convinced the players to join Knights of the Blood, but since then, the guild has been growing stronger and stronger. I don't even know when it started, but we're already at the top of all guilds. Our leader must be very capable to be able to bring Knights of the Blood to such a position. Asuna continued in a serious tone. That's why I don't doubt our leader's ability at all. Even if the guild he brought up is a little annoying right now. Wu Yin listened to Asuna's words and buried them deep in his heart. Heathcliff is Kayaba Akihiko, the final boss of this game. It's only a matter of time before Wu Yin has to face him. Wu Yin is more than happy to learn more about Heathcliff. Suddenly, an email appeared in front of Wu Yin, attracting Wu Yin's attention. After reading the content of the email, Wu Yin frowned. Asuna saw Wu Yin's reaction and walked up to him. What's wrong? From the looks of it, did you receive the mail? Wu Yin nodded and closed the email. He looked at Asuna helplessly. We were just talking about him, and he sent me an email. I wonder if he's spying on our private life? Asuna was stunned and cried out in surprise. Did our leader send you an email? Wu Yin leaned back on the sofa and said, he said it's something important and he wants me to go to Grantham tomorrow. Since he sent me this email, there should only be one important thing. Asuna's pupils shrank as she uttered, the final boss. I think so. Wu Yin narrowed his eyes. Other than the final boss, he should know that I don't care about anything else. Yin. Asuna grabbed Wu Yin's hand. Tomorrow, I can go alone. Wu Yin rudely interrupted Asuna and held her hand. Don't you know what I'm capable of? But Asuna was worried. It's okay. Wu Yin gently hugged Asuna. I'll take care of you. Asuna looked up at Wu Yin and nodded. Dad, Mom, come and eat. Let's go eat. Chapter 720. The next day, as usual, Wu Yin was wearing a black satin coat. The Heaven Gazer was strapped to his back, and the Elucidator was pinned to his waist. He stood at the door, and the coat swayed along with his movements. So, Wu Yin turned around, and he grinned at Asuna and Yui, who were standing by the door. I'll be right back. Asuna couldn't help but ask. Are you sure you don't want me to go with you? Wu Yin shook his head without hesitation. If you go, who's going to take care of Yui? Asuna gritted her teeth and looked at Yui in her arms. Unwillingly, she lowered her head. Tears began to well up in her eyes, but she forced them to stay in her eyes and not let them fall. Asuna was worried. She was worried to death. For Asuna, sitting at home and watching her beloved man go to the battlefield while she waited for him to come back from a safe place was an incomparably painful and torturous thing. Just the thought of Wu Yin not coming back made Asuna stop breathing. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by a hand. She felt like her heart was being squeezed into a fried dough twist. She felt like her heart was being squeezed by a hand. She wanted to go with Wu Yin, even if she had to die. At least they could die together. Asuna was happy every day of her marriage with Wu Yin. She was so happy that she felt like she had no limits. Now, she couldn't bear to live without Wu Yin. If Yui wasn't there, Asuna would definitely go with Wu Yin, but that was impossible, and her daughter was right beside her. Asuna had no choice but to leave Yui behind. But Asuna's shoulders trembled slightly, and she closed her eyes tightly to stop the tears from flowing down her cheeks. But it was useless. Tears still welled up at her eyes. Asuna couldn't hold it in any longer. A warm embrace wrapped around her tightly, accompanied by a gentle voice. "Don't worry." Wu Yin stroked Asuna's hair, and he smiled gently. "We just got married, and we still have a long way to go. Plus, I have a daughter, and both of you. I don't want to die like this." So, Wu Yin closed his eyes, and he leaned his face against Asuna's head. "I won't die without your permission." Asuna reached out her hands and hugged Wu Yin's neck, and she held on tight. It's as if she lets go, Wu Yin will disappear from her sight. A sobbing voice slowly came out from the mouth buried in her chest. "It's a promise." Wu Yin nodded and opened his eyes. It's a promise." Asuna didn't say anything after that. She stayed in Wu Yan's arms for a long time, and then she rubbed her eyes and took a few steps back. She looked straight at Wu Yan's face. "I'm here, waiting for you," Wu Yan smiled. It's a warm smile, but it's also a firm smile. He didn't even think about whether he could survive or not, because no matter what, he couldn't die. He didn't use a helmet, and even if he did, that brain-burning device wouldn't be able to kill him. To Wu Yin, dying in this world is just a mission failure, so he didn't need to worry about his own safety. Plus, he didn't doubt that he would die in the hands of the 75th floor's boss, even if it's a super strong boss that only appears once every 25th floor. Yui. Wu Yin squatted down and patted Yui's head. "Be a good girl and listen to mommy, okay?" Yui nodded and jumped into Wu Yan's arms. "Daddy, come back soon." Wu Yin agreed with a smile. He stood up and glanced at the two girls. He took out a blue crystal from his pocket. "Teleport. Granzum." The crystal shattered into pieces and attached to Wu Yan's body. Wu Yin turned into a blue light and disappeared. Asuna held Yui's hand as she watched Wu Yin disappear into the distance. A long time later, Wu Yin disappeared into the distance. Aincrad's 55th floor grants him. Now, Wu Yan's image is deeply ingrained in every player's heart. It's not that they idolize Wu Yin, they idolize Wu Yin. Of course, there are some who idolize Wu Yin, but most of them are intimidated by his strength. If Asuna is famous because of her cute appearance and strength, then Wu Yin is famous because of his strength. That's why Wu Yin can't compete with Asuna in terms of fans. This was easy to understand. For example, if a modern, beautiful female celebrity and a muscular man who had won a world championship in kickboxing were equally famous, the latter might not have as many fans as the former. In fact, the latter might not even have as many fans as the former. This was because the latter only worked on those who liked kickboxing, while the former worked on the wider society. Wu Yin is in this situation. Along the way, the players pointed at Wu Yin and gossiped about him. Their eyes and faces were filled with respect and admiration. However, none of them dared to approach him. Wu Yin walked towards the Knights of the Blood Oath while being the center of attention. However, Wu Yin didn't notice that the players around him were talking about things like marriage, Flash, and Asuna. It's easy to guess what they're talking about. It didn't take long for the Knights of the Blood's headquarters to appear in front of Wu Yin. The flag fluttering in the wind and the steel-like castle gave off a chilling vibe. Normal players wouldn't even dare to come within 100 meters of this place. Wu Yin just glanced at it and walked over casually. Stop. However, When Wu Yin was about to enter, two players wearing Knights of the Blood special armor walked out from behind the door and blocked Wu Yan's path. This is the Knights of the Blood's headquarters. Players who aren't members of the Knights of the Blood are not allowed to enter. Wu Yin paused and looked at the two players. Just as he was about to say something, the other player who didn't speak just now gasped. You're the Elven Swordsman, Wu Yin? Elven Swordsman, Wu Yin. The player who stopped Wu Yin also gasped. The two players looked at each other before looking at Wu Yin. Wu Yin frowned when he saw their gazes. The two players didn't look at him with respect and awe like the other players. Instead, they looked hostile. I didn't offend them, did I? Wu Yin glanced at the two players who were looking at him with annoyance. Heathcliff invited me here. The leader invited you? The player who stopped Wu Yin rolled his eyes, and he sneered before he stepped forward. I'm sorry, but we didn't receive any orders from the leader. Wu Yin frowned. You can go and report this to the leader. Report? That person laughed out loud as the corners of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Our leader is busy dealing with the 75th floor. He doesn't have time to listen to us, lowly personnel. Wu Yan's face darkened. His red eyes flashed with a strange light. What do you mean by that? Nothing. The player puffed out his chest and said loudly, We didn't receive any orders from the leader to let you in, so you should go back. Wu Yin grinned. He grinned happily. Chapter 721. When Wu Yin and Asuna got married. Aside from Wu Yin and Asuna's close friends and family, there weren't a lot of people in Aincrad who supported the marriage. In fact, there were a lot of people who opposed the marriage. I have to admit that Asuna is very popular. A beautiful girl like her who has both strength and looks. There are very few people in this world who wouldn't want to covet her, except for those old people who are in their 70s or 80s, or those immature children who are still wet behind the ears. Compared to Wu Yin, Asuna's fame was more deeply rooted in the hearts of the players. She's the goddess and idol of every player. Usually, they would be more than happy to catch a glimpse of Asuna in person. The male players of Knights of the Blood Oath, on the other hand, were much more fortunate. Since they were in the same guild as Asuna, they were able to see her almost every day. Naturally, Asuna's charm was deeply engraved in their hearts. Compared to the average player, the members of Knights of the Blood worshipped Asuna much more than the average player. But now, their idol, their goddess, went into someone else's arms and got married to someone else. She even quit Knights of the Blood. This news was no lighter than a heavy bomb directly exploding in their hearts. Because of this, Wu Yin and Asuna got married. That's why so many players came to watch the wedding. Some of them simply wanted to destroy the wedding. After the wedding was completed, they couldn't cause any damage, so they set up a protest association and began to make a big fuss. If Wu Yin and Asuna's house wasn't far away from the city, they would have been surrounded by people the day after the wedding. She had been surrounded by those people who protested against the association. She couldn't have a peaceful day. Unfortunately, the two of them weren't affected at all. They continued to live a peaceful and happy life. They even got a cute daughter out of nowhere. Unfortunately, they can't go on a street parade all day long. They still need to level up. They need to earn money or they won't be able to survive. That's how this farce ended. It became a joke among the players. Back then, the ones who formed the protest group were the crazy fans of Asuna in the Knights of the Blood. Among these people, that includes the two Knights of the Blood Oath players who are trying to stop Wu Yin and give him a hard time. As for Wu Yan's title as the strongest player, they've already forgotten about it. After all, they're also members of the strongest guild. They don't believe it. A single player can go against an entire guild, even the rumored Fey swordsman. With such thoughts in mind, the two of them forgot that Wu Yan's battle record is comparable to that of the entire clearers. The Knights of the Blood Oath are only a small part of the clearers. They also forgot that they, as low-level members, can't represent the entire guild. You're saying, Wu Yan's lips curled into a cold grin that sent a chill down the spines of the two players blocking his way. Am I lying to you? The two Knights of Blood Oath players instinctively took a step back. When they realized their cowardice, they could not help but blush in embarrassment. Enraged, that player stood out again. What? Do you want to force your way in? Don't forget that this is the headquarters of Knights of the Blood. Even if you're the face swordsman, do you dare to go against the entire Knights of the Blood? Go against the entire Knights of the Blood. Wuyan was so angry that he laughed. Very well. I'd like to see how the two of you can make the entire Knights of the Blood my enemy. Hearing Wu Yan's words, the two thought that Wu Yan was going to attack them. Instead of drawing their swords, they shouted at the top of their lungs. Guards, someone's here to mess with us. This voice seemed to have dropped an atomic bomb on the entire Knights of Blood Oath, causing the originally cold steel castle to become noisy. Waves of strange noises came from the door, accompanied by uneven footsteps and shouts. What? Someone's here to mess with us? Are you serious? Which idiot dares to mess with the Knights of the Blood's headquarters? I'd like to see who it is. Let's go check it out. Amidst the shouts, the Knights of the Blood Oath players rushed over from the other side of the door. Their loud footsteps were heard, and soon, they were not far away from the door. Together with the two roadblocks at the door, they looked forward. In the next moment, they were stunned, and they exclaimed in shock. It's the face swordsman Wu Yan. The face swordsman? The face swordsman is here to mess with us? Hey, are you kidding me? Were these people really from a Knights of the Blood Oath? Wu Yan frowned when he saw the Knights of the Blood Oath players making a big fuss out of nothing. Knights of the Blood is the strongest guild in SAO. Wu Yan has seen the quality of their members under Asuna's leadership more than once. Even if they don't have the aura of a champion, they're at least calm and composed. Yet, these people before him were no different from those random players. Not only did they not follow the rules, but they were also making a fuss about nothing. Were they really members of the strongest guild? Wu Yan misunderstood the situation. In the past, the players who were personally led by Asuna were all elites of the Knights of the Blood. As elites, of course, they would have a stronger aura than normal members. Even the elite members had a filthy existence like Kuradil, not to mention the ordinary members. Normally, if a normal member can join the Knights of the Blood, it's enough to prove their strength and quality. Unfortunately, Wu Yan's reputation is too big. The face swordsman's deterrence caught these members off guard. Naturally, they lost their composure. Of course, Wu Yan didn't think of this reason. Even if he did, he wouldn't care about it. He's more concerned about another problem. The entrance of the headquarters was already in such a state. Could it be that the higher-ups did not receive the news? Didn't Heathcliff receive the news? Of course, that's impossible. However, Heathcliff still hasn't shown up. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. He looked calm on the surface, but he was laughing coldly in his mind. Another test? You're always seizing opportunities. Since you're not going to stand up for me, I'll take care of these guys. He lifted his head and looked at the 20-plus members of the Knights of the Blood Oath. His gaze gradually turned hostile, but he still had to say some polite words. Everyone, Wu Yan said calmly. I was invited by Heathcliff. If you don't believe me, you can report to Heathcliff. Don't listen to him. The guy who stopped Wu Yan at the beginning shouted. We didn't receive any orders from our leader, but he still tried to force his way in. Even if he's the face swordsman, he can't bully us. After he finished speaking, he looked around at everyone. Does he think he can disregard the Knights of the Blood after marrying Lady Asuna? Hearing this, the hesitant and fearful members of Cobb narrowed their eyes, and their expressions turned ferocious. Wu Yan instantly understood what was going on. In the end, it's all because of Asuna. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He lost all interest in these people. All right, since you want to stop me, I won't hold back. All of you, come at me together. Chapter 722. All of you, come at me together. Unsurprisingly, the Knights of the Blood's members were enraged. He's obviously looking down on them. Of course, while they're angry, they didn't rush out like idiots. They may have drawn their weapons, but none of them wanted to be the first to step out. They gripped their weapons tightly while looking at Wu Yan's calm face. Their hearts were filled with unease. On the surface, they have the absolute advantage with over 20 people, but they didn't think the person in front of them would let them kill him just because of their numbers. After all, no matter what, he was still the rumored strongest player in the game. Can they really win? This thought burst forth in the hearts of everyone present, causing none of them to dare to rush forward. They looked at each other in dismay, causing the scene to become strange. However, not long after, the man from before gritted his teeth and took a few steps forward. No matter how much we fight in the circle, we won't lose HP. For Asuna-sama, I'll teach you a lesson today. The other players were shocked as well. Their wavering faces became serious. It seems like they have the same idea. Wu Yin was annoyed to the extreme. He was a bit angry. Asuna is my wife. How dare these people say it's for Asuna-sama? How dare they? What? Finished thinking? Wu Yin's face was cold. He walked out and slowly pulled out the heaven gazer from his back. If you're done, then come to me. Don't be too arrogant. Like the straw that broke the camel's back, the Knights of the Blood's members attacked. Their weapons flashed with sword light. They attacked Wu Yin with all their might. Wu Yin narrowed his eyes. His face turned serious. He disappeared from a spot. Bang, 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 bang. When the battle at the entrance of Knights of the Blood's headquarters began, inside the commander's office, Heathcliff sat at the head of the table and stared straight ahead, as if there was something there that was worthy of his attention. However, in his eyes there was only one thing. His pupils were a bit unfocused. Heathcliff and a few other people were sitting at his desk. They were all high-ranking members of the Knights of the Blood, and each of them had a different identity. They're all as powerful as Asuna. However, it was different from Heathcliff's frozen appearance. Their faces were more or less filled with worry as they looked at each other. After a long time, someone finally spoke. "Commander, is this a good idea?" "That's right," another higher-up said. "We were the ones who invited him here. If we let him get into trouble at the entrance, wouldn't it ruin Knights of the Blood's reputation?" "That guy's the Fey swordsman." The higher-ups all looked at Heathcliff. His eyes were filled with doubt. One must know that Knights of the Blood oath had the word knight in their guild name. To this guild, their reputation was much more important than other guilds. In the past, their commander has always been dedicated to protecting the guild's reputation. But today, when he received the report that his guest got into trouble at the entrance of his headquarters, Heathcliff acted out of character. He didn't do anything about it. Instead, he chose to wait and see. Wasn't this helping the tyrant in his evil deeds? These higher-ups are very puzzled. What exactly is their regiment commander thinking? Heathcliff glanced at them and said casually, "I have my own plans." "Don't ask too much." Hearing Heathcliff's words, the higher-ups immediately shut their mouths and didn't say anything else. Heathcliff's words were very useful to them. Plus, they know their commander's abilities. He must have his own reasons for doing something like this. It's best if they don't ask too much. Unfortunately, Heathcliff did have his own considerations, but it had nothing to do with them or the entire Knights of the Blood. The real problem was Heathcliff himself. "Commander." Not long after, a Knights of the Blood player walked in and said to Heathcliff, "Commander, they're fighting." Oh, Heathcliff's expression finally changed a little as he stared into the distance with a serious look on his face. "So what's the situation now?" The player hesitated for a moment and said, "The situation is very bad for us. Even though there are more than 20 of us fighting the Fey swordsman, the situation is one-sided. Almost half of us have lost the ability to fight." One of the higher-ups quickly asked, "Are they fighting freely or are they applying for a duel?" "It's a free-for-all." They didn't apply for a duel. The upper echelons shuddered, and their faces were filled with shock. If they didn't apply for a duel, that means none of them will lose HP. It's not a one-on-one duel, it's an AoE duel. Under such circumstances, half of the people had lost their ability to fight. Just how strong is the Fey swordsman? Heathcliff raised his head. Did he use his dual sword style? No, that person said without hesitation. The other party has been using one weapon to fight. From the information we have, it should be that big sword, Heaven Gazer. As for the other one-handed sword, Elucidator, it has always been strapped to the back of the other party's waist and has never been pulled out. Heathcliff fell silent. Heathcliff knew that because of Asuna, Wu Yin used a week to prepare for the wedding and another week to live a peaceful life with Asuna. He didn't go out of the labyrinth or the wilderness. In other words, it's been half a month since the 74th floor was cleared, and Wu Yin hasn't leveled up at all. In other words, Wu Yin hasn't improved in the past half a month. If it was another player who hasn't leveled up for a month and a half, they've been absorbing EXP for a month and a half. After the level gap and equipment upgrade, the gap between their strength will start to widen. If things go south, the battle between two players who are on par with each other will be decided in one hit. Wu Yin, on the other hand, is still as strong as ever even after half a month of peaceful life. 1 against 20, and he didn't even use his dual sword stream, but in just a few minutes he made half of the people lose their ability to fight. Moreover, he didn't lose any HP and only had a slight knockback effect. It was like a person being hit by a huge rock. Even if he had activated Invincible Aura, he would still be knocked back or even stunned by the impact of the rock. In order to defeat a player in the safe zone, other than a duel, the only other way was to beat the opponent until they were dizzy and lost their ability to fight. It was like motion sickness. No matter how strong a man was, he would still become limp and weak after getting motion sickness. However, this was much more difficult than a normal duel. Perhaps in a duel, you only needed one slash to reduce the opponent's HP, but in a battle within the circle, you would need to use dozens or even hundreds of slashes to reach the point where the opponent would lose the ability to fight. In this situation, Wu Yin still has the upper hand against over 20 players. He didn't even have to use his full strength. Those players aren't the elites of Knights of the Blood, but they're still stronger than normal players. He's still as strong as ever. Heathcliff closed his eyes quietly, making the atmosphere around him quiet and heavy. It was not until a few minutes later that Heathcliff opened his eyes and stood up. "Let's go. Let's welcome our guest." The higher-ups finally let out a sigh of relief. They don't want to make an enemy out of the elven swordsman. Chapter 723. Bang! A player wearing Knights of the Blood's armor was sent flying backward. He landed on the ground and rolled a few times before stopping. He couldn't get up anymore. His eyes were filled with circles, and his head was shaking from side to side. He looked like he was in great pain. This person is the gatekeeper who tried to pick a fight with Wu Yin in the beginning. On the surrounding ground, the Knights of Blood Oath members who had been swaggering earlier were lying on the ground one after another. Their bodies were tossing and turning as they wailed. However, there was not much pain in their voices. Instead, it was more of discomfort. Wu Yin stood in the middle of the players on the ground with Heaven Gazer in his hand. He looked around him, and he pursed his lips. He didn't look too pleased with the outcome of the battle. This was to be expected. With his strength, he could easily take care of these players who couldn't go to the front lines. However, because he was in the safe zone, his HP wouldn't be reduced, and this wasn't a duel, so it took him about 15 minutes to take care of all of them. Too slow, this efficiency. Wu Yin sighed and clicked his tongue. "I haven't leveled up for half a month. Did I become weaker? How can I become weaker in the game world?" If other players knew what Wu Yin was thinking, they would want to kill themselves by smashing their heads against a brick. Basically a bunch of first-rate players. In the safe zone, it took him 15 minutes to take care of all of them, and he thinks he's weaker? If they had that kind of strength, no one in SAO would want to go out and level up. Wu Yin walked to the entrance of Knights of the Blood's HQ. He glanced at the players on the ground. He shook his head. A bunch of idiots who were used as tools. What's the point of thinking about this? Heathcliff, it's about time for him to show up. Wu Yin didn't wait for Heathcliff to show up. Another unexpected but reasonable person showed up. "Yin?" A familiar voice came from behind him. Wu Yin paused for a moment. He turned around and smiled when he saw the person. He waved at him. "Oh, Kirito, you're here too?" Kirito, who was standing not far away, finally recovered from the shock. He quickly ran to Wu Yin's side. "What's going on?" Kirito looked around at the players on the ground. He turned around and looked at Heaven Gazer in Wu Yin's hand. He asked in shock, "You're at war with the Knights of Blood Oath? They kidnapped Asuna?" Wu Yin choked on his breath. He almost choked to death. "You think you can kidnap Asuna for me?" Even Heathcliff, won't be able to do it. That's true. Kirito smiled awkwardly. Then, he pointed at his surroundings in confusion. Then, what's going on? Well, it's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. Wu Yin put Heaven Gazer back on his back and looked at Kirito. By the way, why are you here? Heathcliff sent me an email, Kirito said with a serious face. He said it's something important. Wu Yin nodded. That's right, Kirito's strength is top-notch. Even if he didn't learn dual sword style like the original work, he's still one of the top 5 players in SAO. Perhaps, other than me and Heathcliff, he's also one of the top 5 players in SAO. Apart from Heathcliff and Heathcliff, he's the strongest player in SAO. Heathcliff has no reason not to invite someone like him. After all, his main goal is to raid Asuna. Since you're here, you must have been invited by Heathcliff as well, right? Kirito asked. His face turned serious when he saw Wu Yin nodding. He invited me, and now he invited you. It seems like his goal this time isn't as simple as it seems. I can only think of one thing. That's the only one. Wu Yin tilted his head and closed his eyes. The 75th floor's boss. Kirito lowered his head. He took a deep breath and patted his cheeks to cheer himself up. He asked Wu Yin, "Does Asuna know about this?" "She knows." Wu Yin sighed. "She wanted to come with us, but I used Yui as an excuse to make her stay. What about you? Is Liz okay?" "Okay, that's a big problem." Kirito smiled bitterly. With Liz's personality, she would have come even if she knew it would cost her life. That's why I didn't tell her about my guess. Maybe Heathcliff asked us to come here for some other reason? Kirito smirked and punched Wu Yan's chest. Besides, even if he invited us to raid the floor's boss, I don't think it'll be a problem since you're here with us. Wu Yan shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You think so highly of me? Of course. Kirito crossed his arms and said seriously, if the most powerful monster in SAO is the floor's boss that appears every 25th floor, then you're the most powerful monster among us players. Hey, I'm still here. Wu Yin slapped Kirito's back, almost knocking him to the ground. If Asuna hears you calling me a monster, she'll catch you and cook you up. Kirito-kun is right. A powerful voice came from beside them. Heathcliff came out of the headquarters with 4 high-ranking members of the Knights of the Blood Oath in tow. Heathcliff looked at Wu Yin, and he said something with a meaningful tone. Yin-kun, you're the most powerful player among us players, so we'll need your help to raid the floor's boss. So it's about the floor's boss. Kirito's face sank. He really hoped that Heathcliff didn't call them here for the floor's boss. It's not that he doesn't want to clear this game as soon as possible, but this floor's boss is too important. The floor's boss appears every 25th floor, and most of the players sacrifice themselves to clear it. The army paid a heavy price to clear the floor's boss on the 25th floor, and the clearers almost all died on the 50th floor. How many players will be sacrificed on the 75th floor this time? Kirito didn't want to see anyone sacrifice themselves. Even in the original work, Kirito didn't want to see anyone sacrifice themselves after experiencing the cheater incident and the Moonlit Black Cats incident. Kirito didn't want to see anyone sacrifice themselves, let alone Kirito, who was living a much better life than the original work. Also, since Heathcliff called him here, it means that even Heathcliff can't do anything to the floor's boss this time. Otherwise, Heathcliff wouldn't have minded taking on the boss himself if he could have done it alone. Aside from the high risk involved, the rewards are also unimaginably bountiful. If possible, no one would want to give up the boss reward, not even Wu Yan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fought with the clearers for so long. Of course, that's just Kirito's opinion. Perhaps Heathcliff saw through Kirito's worries and smiled. Kirito-kun, don't worry. We have Yin-kun with us this time. I'm sure we'll be able to reduce our casualties to 0. Hearing this, Kirito's expression became a lot better, and he looked at Heathcliff. So what about the floor's boss? Let's go in and talk about the details. Kirito nodded and Wu Yin nodded. The group walked into the HQ together. As for the people on the ground, they've already been forgotten. Chapter 724, Knights of the Blood, HQ, In a conference room with glass walls, Heathcliff was sitting at the center of a large semicircular table. On his left and right were two high-ranking members of Knights of the Blood. They were dressed differently than normal members. In front of the table were Wu Yin and Kirito. Wu Yin pursed his lips when he saw Heathcliff and the others sitting in a row in front of him. They're letting their guests stand while they're sitting comfortably. What's more, they're putting on such a show. Are all big guilds like to put on airs like this? Heathcliff didn't know that Wu Yin already thought of him as a high-ranking member. He glanced at Wu Yin and Kirito before shifting his gaze to Wu Yin. Before I explain, Yin Kuan, please accept my apology. It's my fault that you were treated like that in our HQ. Please forgive me. Wu Yin secretly despised Heathcliff. Does he think I can't see through him? Of course, Wu Yin pretended that he didn't care. He nodded and shrugged. Well, it's not all bad. At least I have them as my sparring partners. My rusty skills have recovered quite a bit. It's a good thing, oh? Heathcliff narrowed his eyes and chuckled. That's good. Kirito saw that the two of them were almost done with their business. He raised his head and said, Well then, can you explain the situation to us now? Heathcliff lowered his head, an indescribable light flashing in his eyes. It's just as you thought. I invited you here because we found a room of the 75th floor's boss. Kirito's expression froze. Wu Yin finally shifted his gaze to Heathcliff. Heathcliff saw their expressions and placed his hands in front of him. He placed his hands on the table and spoke to Wu Yin and Kirito as if he had everything under control. Yesterday, the clearers were clearing the labyrinth area as usual. We collected the map files of the 75th floor. Although it has been a while since we entered the labyrinth area, the clearers didn't make any sacrifices. But in order to prevent the clearers from sacrificing themselves, we slowed down our progress a lot. After all, we already predicted that the 75th floor's boss would be a tough fight, maybe even a fight to the death. Heathcliff's words were clear. Let alone Kirito. Even Wu Yan's heart sank. Up until now, the players had conquered a total of 74 floors. Among these floors, only the bosses on the 25th and 50th floors had extraordinarily large bodies and powerful combat strength. Only when clearing these two floors did the clearers have to pay an unimaginable amount of sacrifices. Now that they were starting to clear the 75th floor, the pressure that the incomparably powerful boss gave off was unimaginable. It's understandable that the clearers have to be cautious and slow down when clearing such a floor. Although we spent a lot of time collecting the map files of the labyrinth area, we didn't make any sacrifices, but Heathcliff's tone suddenly changed. Just yesterday, our party discovered the boss's room, so we sent out a party of 20 players from 5 guilds to investigate the boss's room. At this point, Heathcliff closed his eyes, making it impossible to see his current emotions from his pupils. First, we'll send 10 people to guard the entrance of the boss room. The other 10 will enter the room and gather information about the boss. Send 10 players to the boss's room to collect information? Kirito looked at Heathcliff anxiously. He had a bad feeling about this. Wu Yin crossed his arms and furrowed his brows as he looked at Heathcliff. From the looks of it didn't end well, did it? Heathcliff shook his head and said, It wasn't bad, it was very bad. Heathcliff told them the cruel truth in a calm tone. The moment the boss appeared, the door to the boss's room suddenly closed. Kirito clenched his fists in anger. According to the report of the 10-man party, the door to the boss room had been closed for about 5 minutes. During this time, no matter how they used lockpicking skills or direct attacks, they were unable to open the door. However, after 5 minutes, the door suddenly opened on its own. What happened? Kirito gritted his teeth and asked. Wu Yin sighed. Since Heathcliff had found them and explained the situation to them, there could only be one conclusion. Heathcliff pursed his lips and closed his eyes. There's nothing in the room. Be it the 10 players who went in to investigate or the boss, all of them had disappeared. There are no signs of the teleportation crystal leaving the scene. Those 10 people did not come back either. As for us in the Black Iron Palace at the bottom, we saw their names on the death list on the metal tablet. Kirito held his breath. His lips trembled for a moment before he smiled bitterly. There's no sign of the crystal leaving the room. Is it the crystals area? Heathcliff nodded and looked at Wu Yin. Yin Kun, when you fought the boss on the 74th floor, I heard that the boss's room was also a crystals area, right? Yeah. Wu Yin nodded. Because of this, Kobats from the army died. So, I think that from now on, all the boss rooms will be crystal nullification zones. Heathcliff announced a shocking piece of news, which silenced everyone present. Being in the crystal nullification zone, players would not be able to use crystal items. The transfer crystal used to teleport away, the recovery crystal used to recover HP, and the detoxification crystal used to dispel thousands of poisons would all be unusable. The recovery crystal and detoxification crystal aren't that bad. Even though they can't use the recovery crystal and detoxification crystal, they can still find other items to replace them. However, it's a different story if they can't use the transfer crystal. If they encounter a dangerous situation and can't use the transfer crystal, the number of deaths will increase greatly. In the future, if all the rooms of the boss room were to be crystal nullification zones, then the biggest premise of no sacrifice in the game would become an unattainable dream. In the worst-case scenario, the players might even retreat. At that time, the clearers will suffer an unprecedented blow to their strength. But if they don't defeat the boss, they won't be able to clear the game. However, that was not the only bad news. Heathcliff said to the two of them, apart from not being able to use crystal items, the 75th floor's boss room seems to have a setting where when the boss appears, it will close the door at the same time, cutting off the escape route of the players. If that's the case, if we want to take down this boss, we can only send out a party that can command the largest number of people in the area, and at the same time, gather as many top players as possible to help us. So, Yin-kun, Kirito-kun. Heathcliff straightened his back and looked at the two players in front of him. We really need your help. With the help of the Fey swordsman Wu Yin and the black swordsman Kirito, I'm sure we'll be able to clear the boss no matter how difficult it is. Chapter 725. The entire meeting room was silent. No one said a word. Only Heathcliff's last sentence echoed in everyone's ears like an echo. Kirito took a deep breath. His expression was solemn. After a long time, he finally opened his mouth to speak. I'm maybe a solo player, but I'm also a member of the Clearers. Kirito looked at Heathcliff and nodded firmly. I'll be participating in the boss battle this time. Heathcliff nodded and looked at Wu Yin. His gaze was completely different from when he looked at Kirito. It's clear that Heathcliff cares about Wu Yin. Wu Yin smiled faintly at Heathcliff's reaction. I'm not a member of the Clearers, but I did promise you that I will help you in the boss battle as the prize for as soon as withdrawal. It's just that. Wu Yin looked at Heathcliff with a smile. I'm not a member of the Clearers, so if I'm the one who kills the boss, I won't share the loot with you. Hearing this, the higher-ups of the Knights of the Blood looked at each other. Kirito also had a helpless expression, but Heathcliff had a smile on his face. Of course, Yin Kuin isn't a member of the Clearers. If you're the one who kills the boss, then the reward for killing the boss will naturally belong to you alone. Heathcliff's words made everyone speechless. Other than Wu Yin, everyone in the room was shocked. If there's no loot, will the Clearers participate in the boss battle? Even though the players' ultimate goal was to clear Aincrad, they would still participate in the raid for the sake of the bigger picture if they didn't get any loot. But there's a thorn in their heart, and that's not a good outcome. If things go wrong, Wu Yin will be viewed as an enemy by the Clearers. What is this Heathcliff thinking? Doesn't he know that Wu Yin and the Clearers are competitors? Wouldn't this worsen the original competitive relationship and cause both sides to become enemies? Also, Wu Yin is the same. Why would he propose such a condition that will likely be viewed as an enemy? What the people here didn't know is that the reason Wu Yin proposed such a condition is very simple and very simple. He's broke, that's right. He's broke. After spending a lot of money on the wedding, he still has 2, or rather, 3 CDs at home. Even if as soon as money was put together, after this period of squandering, she had already used up all of it. Plus, Wu Yin hasn't leveled up at all, let alone the labyrinth area. He hasn't even ventured into the wilderness. He hasn't touched a single monster, so he didn't earn any money. His wallet is almost empty. If it wasn't for Heathcliff's invitation, Wu Yin would have gone to the labyrinth as well. Not to level up, but to earn some money. He has a lot of valuable items in his inventory. If he sold them all, it's not impossible for his wallet to recover back to its previous state. But he's not sure if other people can afford them. He's not willing to part with them himself. There are a lot of precious items that other people can't even get their hands on. Their effects are naturally amazing. Wu Yin isn't willing to sell these items that can be put to great use just for a bit of living expenses. It's not like he's at the end of his rope. If he needs money, he could just buy it himself. It's because of this that Wu Yin made such a request to Heathcliff. As the saying goes, if you don't open for 3 days, open for 3 years, and you'll be able to eat for 3 years. It's the same saying when applied to a boss. With the final boss reward, Wu Yin doesn't need to go to the labyrinth area for money anymore. Of course, leveling up and earning money along the way is secondary. As for the hostility from the clearers, it doesn't matter. Ever since Asuna married him, he's been treated with hostility. He doesn't care about the clearers anymore. As for Heathcliff, no one knows what he's thinking. Wu Yin left the meeting room with Kirito, leaving Heathcliff and the other 4 members of the Knights of the Blood Oath in the room. They sat there motionlessly. The atmosphere was eerily silent. "Commander," not long after, the voice of one of the higher-ups rang out, breaking the deathly silence. "This final boss battle is very important. We should gather all the top players to increase our chances of winning." "Yeah, Commander." Another member looked at Heathcliff and said, "Aren't we going to call Asuna back?" Heathcliff shook his head without looking back. His eyes were fixed on the only door in the room. "Asuna has left the Knights of the Blood. I announced it to her face. Even if we need her, we can't call her back. Otherwise, the guild's reputation will be ruined. Then we can use the name of invitation," one of the higher-ups suggested. "Just like the Fey Swordsman and the Black Swordsman, we can use the name of the clearers to invite Asuna, the Flash, to help us. With Asuna's personality, she won't refuse a clearer's request." Heathcliff glanced at that person and quickly returned to his normal self. Indeed, Asuna might not be working on the game anymore, but she'll definitely come if we invite her. But have you forgotten about the Fey Swordsman, Wu Yin? Without waiting for members to answer, Heathcliff said with a serious face, "Since the Fey Swordsman is here and Asuna didn't come with him, it means that Wu Yin doesn't want Asuna to participate in this boss battle. If we invite Asuna, Wu Yin will probably turn against us because of this. Is it that serious?" Heathcliff closed his eyes and spoke with an indescribable emotion. "He's very strong, so strong that even I don't have much confidence in defeating him if he doesn't use his unique skill, dual sword style." The members of the upper echelons fell silent. The duel between Wu Yin and Heathcliff from a year ago was still playing in their minds. That incredible skill, that incredible speed, that terrifying strength, and that incredible battle experience, even after a year, still made their hearts beat faster. Now, the level of the players is a lot higher than a year ago. Among the top players, the lowest level is already at level 80, and their equipment is getting better and better. But at the same time, it's getting harder and harder to level up, and the equipment is getting more and more developed. A year ago, the reason why Wu Yin was so strong was because his level was too high and his equipment was too good. But now it's getting harder to level up, and the gap between the top players is getting harder and harder to widen. It's the same with equipment, but the Fey Swordsman is still able to defeat more than 20 top players in the game. His strength is still as terrifying as ever. That person is both good and evil, and he doesn't have too many scruples. People like him are the hardest to control. It's fine if you don't touch his bottom line, but if you do, he'll become crazier than anyone else." Heathcliff said with a tense face and a hint of helplessness in his tone. "That's why it's best not to do too many things that he doesn't like, or else something might go wrong at a critical moment. He's a solo player, and we're a team. If we really go all out, we'll be the ones who will be restrained. We can't afford to gamble with him." Chapter 726. Aincrad's 75th floor, Corinia, Teleport Gate Plaza. Today, there were close to 50 players wandering around the spacious square. They were in groups of 2s and 3s, chatting about something. However, their faces were filled with worry and seriousness, as if they were soldiers who were about to go to war. These 50 players are the top players in the clears. They're here to answer Heathcliff's summons and head to the labyrinth area to take down the 75th floor's boss. They more or less know that the boss this time is different from the previous ones. It's going to be a lot stronger. That's why even though the 50 players are chatting, none of them are joking around. The atmosphere is heavy, and there's a thick haze hanging over the plaza. It's a sign of everyone's mood. Maybe they're aware that today is a special day. Everyone here is part of the clearers. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only 50 players here. After all, this is the front line. While there's a lot of danger, there's also a lot of rewards to be gained. That's why a lot of strong players are willing to come here. But today, there's not a single one of them. While everyone is whispering to each other, no one knows if they're discussing the strategy or praying for themselves. Suddenly, a wave of light flashed on the platform. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. The only people who would be here today were those who would be participating in the 75th floor's boss raid. In other words, these people would be their companions. Even if it was for their own safety, they had to know who these people were and whether or not they were worthy of being entrusted with. It was only natural that they would do so, but the next thing they saw was a figure. It's something they didn't expect. When the wave of light dissipated and they saw the newcomers, they were all stunned. The newcomers are Wu Yin and Kirito. The two of them looked around and walked down the portal platform, heading towards a corner at the same time. They were all solo players and didn't fit in with others at all. Naturally, they didn't gather together like the others. If it weren't for the two of them coming together, they might have had to occupy a corner by themselves. When they walked to the corner, the players who were still in a daze reacted as though they had been startled awake. In the next moment, the players who were still in a daze reacted. A scene that was completely different from the previous, lifeless atmosphere appeared. Am I seeing things? Was that Wu Yin? Elven swordsman, Wu Yin? That's right. There was absolutely no mistake. A black satin coat, a black greatsword. Although the healing fairy didn't appear, there's another sword on his waist. The only one who would carry two swords is the fairy swordsman, Wu Yin, who has the unique skill dual sword style. The elven swordsman is here too. The strongest player wants to fight the guardian boss with us? Too reliable. Obviously, the appearance of Wu Yin lifted the spirits of the clearers, who were under great pressure. A player who could solo the guardian boss. There was nothing more reliable than such a person. On the other hand, Kirito was dumbfounded by the excitement of the clearers. After a long time, he finally regained his senses and couldn't help but laugh. He glanced at Wu Yin, who was beside him. Did you see that? Those people are so excited about you participating in the Guardian Boss raid. It's the influence of your title. Wu Yin pouted and turned his head away. What's there to be excited about? When they find out that I'm going to take all the loot, they'll vent their excitement on me. What a bunch of materialistic people. That's not bad. Kirito smiled and said, at least you can boost their morale and make them more courageous. You have to be careful. Don't wait until the end. The Guardian Boss's last hit was stolen by someone else. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow and looked at Kirito. Don't tell me you want to get involved too? Don't worry. Kirito shrugged. Just when Wu Yin thought Kirito was going to say, I won't steal it from you, Kirito said, if possible, I don't mind slashing the Guardian Boss when it's low on health. At this time, a slightly old voice came from beside the two, interrupting their conversation. The two looked towards the source of the voice, and in the next moment, the figures of Kata, Klein, and Agile appeared in their eyes, causing them to smile. You guys are here too? Of course. Klein giggled. We're also clearers and the guild leader of one of the clearers. Of course we're here, but I didn't expect. Suda put his arm around Wu Yan's shoulder and said excitedly, You're here too. It seems like this boss raid is going to be a success. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Suda really thinks highly of me. I might not be the guild leader, but I'm still a clearers. Agile straightened his back. Besides, the Guardian boss drops a lot of loot. How can I not come and get some? Oh? Then you should be careful. Kirito looked at Agile and pointed at Wu Yin. Yin is also here for the loot. If he kills the Guardian boss, he'll take all the loot, and you won't get a share. Take all the loot. Agile's body trembled as he looked at Wu Yan's smiling face in shock. How is that possible? Take all the loot. Oh, don't think it's impossible. Kirito smiled. He's not part of the clearers. Heathcliff specifically invited him to help us. Heathcliff has already agreed to keep the loot for himself. You have no choice but to accept it. What? Agile gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. Heathcliff, even if he's the leader of the clearers, what right does he have to make such a decision? What about our interests? Well, who knows? Kirito gloated. Why don't you ask Heathcliff yourself? Agile took a deep breath, and he turned around to look at Wu Yin. The anger on his face turned into flattery at an unimaginable speed. Yin, let's talk. How about you give me some of the Guardian boss's loot? I only need a little bit. Wu Yin, Kirito, Agile, and Suda rolled their eyes at the same time. They looked at Agile with disdain. While the five of them were fooling around, Heathcliff arrived with a few elites from the Knights of the Blood. Seeing this scene, everyone shut their mouths, and the whole place became silent. Heathcliff walked to the front of the crowd and took out a cylindrical crystal that was much larger than an ordinary one. This is a cloister crystal. It has the same effect as a teleportation crystal. However, it can be used to teleport people to different locations. Unfortunately, it can only be used once. Otherwise, it would be comparable to the teleportation crystal that Xing got from the quest. Cloister. Open. As soon as he finished speaking, the cloister crystal in Heathcliff's hand immediately shattered. In front of Heathcliff, an arc of light that looked like it was teleporting reverberated, and like a tunnel, it froze on the spot. Everyone looked at each other and followed Heathcliff into the tunnel. Their vision blurred, and everyone arrived at a dim passageway. In front of them, there was a tall door. Bang! Heathcliff slammed his shield on the ground and looked at the crowd. Everyone, are you ready? The 50 players nodded in unison. Heathcliff glanced at Wu Yin, who was at the back of the group, before he turned around. Well then, let's begin. The door to the boss slowly opened up before his eyes. Chapter 727. The door, which was large enough to fill a person's field of vision, slowly moved and pushed inwards. The sound of the door opening slowly spread throughout the entire space. All the players present drew their weapons and stared at the door without blinking. Kirito pulled out Shadow Chaser from his back. Suda, Klein, and Agile also aimed their weapons at the door. Only Wu Yin stood there quietly. His hand rested on the hilt of Heaven Gazer. Standing at the front, Heathcliff pulled out his long sword from the inside of his cross shield. When the door to the boss was fully opened, he raised his right hand and shouted, "Let's go. Battle. Begin." Oh, everyone shouted at the top of their lungs. They mustered up their courage and followed behind Heathcliff. They rushed into the boss's room with messy footsteps. It's as if they are warriors who will never return. When the last person entered the boss's room was finally exposed to everyone's eyes. It's a spacious room, bigger than the Colosseum in Rome. The floor is circular, the walls are curved, and the walls are curved upwards. Only after reaching an unknown distance in the air did they bend and merge together like an egg with only half of it left. The surroundings were silent and dark. Even the players with the best field of vision could only vaguely see a dozen meters ahead of them. However, there was nothing here other than the ground and walls. The only thing that could be seen were rocks that extended out of nowhere. After everyone entered the room and formed a formation, the boss's door closed with a loud bang. The loud sound of the door closing was like a heavy hammer that hammered the players' hearts. This caused them to become nervous. That was because they knew that when the door opened again, either the boss would be dead or all the players would be dead. Other than that, the door would never open again. Everyone gripped their weapons so tightly that their knuckles were cracking. Everyone's eyes scanned the room, trying to find the boss silhouette. Everyone was looking around the room, trying to find the boss silhouette. However, The boss did not appear even after a long time. The unknown was the most terrifying. In this kind of unknown situation, everyone's nerves were stretched to the limit. At this time, even a small impact was enough to cause a huge reaction. Of course, there was one exception. So, a figure shot out like an arrow from a bow. Suddenly, it shot up into the sky. With an unimaginable leap and astonishing speed, it arrived at the top of the room in the blink of an eye. Before anyone could react, several strange sounds suddenly rang out. Clang, the sound of a sword being drawn. Bang, a muffled sound rang out. Up there. No one knew who it was, but someone let out a loud cry that sounded like he was about to collapse. When it reached everyone's ears, everyone abruptly raised their heads and looked up. With one look, the faces of nearly 50 players paled. Their eyes and faces paled. Traces of horror appeared on their faces. Kirito and the others' pupils also shrunk. What is that thing? Just like before, a hysterical scream rang out. But this time, no one paid attention to that person, because the thing in front of them made their minds go blank. They couldn't react anymore. At the top of the room, a huge monster with a length of more than 10 meters appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Its entire body was made up of bones that were similar to joints, similar to the spine of a human. A pair of sharp bones protruded from each grayish-white bone joint, like the legs of a centipede. As it moved, a bone-chilling sound similar to boiling water could be heard from those legs made of bones. A skull with a face that resembled a human's and a spider's was connected to the front of the spine. The skull was twisted into a streamlined shape, with two pairs of eye sockets hanging up high. The lower jaw protruded forward, revealing sharp fangs. On both sides of the skull, there were huge bone arms that protruded outwards in the shape of sickles. A monster. A real monster. However, at this very moment, the monster's two pairs of eyes and four eye sockets were emitting a dense blood-red light. Along with the strange, insect-like hiss from before, the sound reverberated throughout the entire space. At the center of its huge body, a person was holding a large black sword, which was stabbed into its skeleton. That person, it's Wu Yin. Yin, Suda, Klein, and Agile were stunned. He jumped up and attacked. Kirito forced a smile, but cold sweat dripped down his forehead. How reckless must he be to do something like that? What a terrifying jumping ability. Heathcliff gritted his teeth, turned around, and shouted at everyone. His voice seemed to freeze over. Don't gather together. Get out of my way. Just as he finished speaking, the centipede, made of bones, under the gaze of everyone's pale faces, wriggled its countless bony legs and extended outwards. Then it fell downwards. Quick, spread out. As Heathcliff roared, the players who had finally regained their senses quickly scattered in fear. Those who didn't manage to disperse in time were still staring blankly at the sky, as if they had lost their minds. Wu Yin cursed in his heart. He used the heaven gazer embedded in the monster's bones to support himself and fell down with it. But because Wu Yin jumped up to attack, his body is now below the boss. In other words, if the boss falls to the ground, he'll be squashed into a meat pie. Those idiots! Wu Yin looked at the players who still didn't know how to disperse. He pulled out the heaven gazer from the monster's body and slammed it into the monster's body. With the momentum of the impact, Wu Yin flew backward. Boom! With a loud bang, the giant skeletal body of the boss crashed to the ground, stirring up a wave of dust that swept in all directions. Perhaps it was angered because the boss raised its giant skeletal jaws and roared. The roar jolted the players back to their senses. Their faces were filled with fear as they stared at the boss in front of them. Before they could even turn around, the boss's four blood-red eyes were fixed on them. The pair of scythe-like bone blades in front of its body slashed through the players' bodies in an instant. Amidst the screams, a red light flashed in the middle of the players' bodies, indicating that they were wounded. Following that, their HP bars, which were originally full, began to drop at an incredible rate. They dropped to yellow, then to red, until they hit rock bottom and shattered into pieces. Shock, fear, and shock filled every player's face. One hit. Klein stared blankly at the giant boss. Just one hit? Are you kidding me? Kirito bit his lip so hard that it almost bled. He couldn't believe it. No one here wanted to believe it. Everyone here is one of the best players in SAO. Be it level or equipment, they're at the top of the game. But under such circumstances, even with full HP, he couldn't even take a single hit from the boss. Terrifying. How terrifying. Ahaha. Wu Yan's lips curled into a grin as a drop of sweat trickled down the side of his face. Looks like I can't be careless. Chapter 728. The boss raised its head and hissed. A shockwave of fire rippled out from under its countless bony feet. Wherever it passed, the floor seemed to be on fire. The originally dark and cold floor instantly turned fiery red. It only stopped when the entire boss room was lit up. The dark environment suddenly brightened up. This was a good thing for the players whose vision was limited. However, none of the players felt happy at all. The fiery red environment around them could not dispel the coldness in their hearts. Only sweat dripped down from their bodies as if they were being roasted. Spread out. Spread out. Heathcliff's voice was still echoing in the air. The situation in front of them was obviously very dangerous, but there was an indescribable calmness in his voice. The players around him began to calm down a little, and they began to disperse in an orderly manner. However, there were still 2 or 3 players who were panicking and running around aimlessly. Many people frowned and broke out in cold sweat for them. Yen. Kirito yelled at Wu Yan. Wu Yan turned around and nodded as if he understood what Kirito was trying to do. The 2 of them dashed towards the boss made of skeletons. Seeing Wu Yan and Kirito rushing toward it, the boss let out a roar. The boss seemed to recognize Wu Yan as the one who just slashed it. Its eyes flashed red. Its gigantic body was propelled by its centipede-like bony legs as it charged forward. Boom! The next moment, the 2 sides collided violently. The spectators could vaguely see that before the 2 sides collided, the boss had swung its pair of bone scythes. Following that, a loud bang rang out, and the 2 figures were sent flying backward after the loud bang. Damn it! Wu Yan's hands were a little numb from the impact. He clenched his teeth and flipped in the air to stabilize himself. Kirito, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. He crashed into the ground and lost a little bit of his HP. His wine-red eyes stared straight at the boss in front of him. Wu Yan's expression was very serious. The Heaven Gazer, sword in his hand, was still trembling. One could imagine how terrifying the boss's strength was in that short clash. Wu Yan is a player who put all his points into strength. Strength represents strength and attack. But even so, he was still sent flying in a single clash. Of course, Wu Yan wasn't surprised. The 74th floor boss's strength was already a little higher than his, and the 75th floor boss is a super boss that appears once every 25 floors. It's not hard to predict that the boss's strength will surpass his. Besides, Wu Yan didn't think he could kill a top clearers in a single hit. Yet the boss managed to do it. Strength. Attack. It's terrifying, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is as the boss charged at the surrounding players, it relied on its enormous body to ram into them. Its bony feet were like tires, and its speed was incomparably outstanding. In addition to its frightening attack power, the boss was like a charging train. Let alone attack, they couldn't even get close to the boss. Even its speed is amazing. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and stood up. He swung the Heaven Gazer in the air and pointed it at the ground. His other hand slowly rested on the hilt of the elucidator. Kirito, Wu Yan said to Kirito without looking back. I'll tank it from the front. You take Klein and the others and attack it from the side. You alone? Kirito looked at Wu Yan in surprise. Are you sure? It's not that Kirito doesn't believe in Wu Yan's strength. It's just that the boss this time is too terrifying. It can kill a top clearers in one hit, and that's enough to make everyone tremble. Wu Yan chuckled and slowly pulled out the elucidator and pointed it at the ground with the Heaven Gazer. I'm going to go all out. What do you think? Kirito's expression froze when he heard Wu Yan's words. He sighed in relief when he saw Wu Yan wielding two swords. He turned to look at the boss. "Don't die." Wu Yan shook the Heaven Gazer and the Elucidator. The two black one-handed swords shone with the light of sword skill. "If you guys weren't here, I would have charged in already." A small fairy appeared out of thin air beside Wu Yan. It circled around Wu Yan and landed on his shoulder. When Wu Yan felt a slight weight on his shoulder, he immediately dashed forward. His body turned into a ray of black light and appeared in front of the boss. Amidst the violent roar, the Heaven Gazer flashed with light. With a rise and fall, it suddenly chopped down. Clang! Heaven Gazer landed on the giant skull of the boss. It made a crisp sound as if it had hit steel. The boss howled in pain. Its eyes were bloodshot. It raised its bone scythe and chopped down at Wu Yanli. Clang! Another crisp sound rang out. This time, it wasn't the sound of a hit. It was the sound of a block. Oomph! Wu Yan grunted and blocked the boss's bone scythe with his sword. Sparks flew everywhere when the two weapons collided. The force of the collision was so great that it kept moving towards Wu Yan's head. If it wasn't for the infinite martial arts skill, the scythe would have cut through Wu Yan's body. The force was too strong. Oomph! Seeing Wu Yan block its bone scythe with a small sword, the boss was furious. It raised its other scythe and slashed at Wu Yan from the other side. Wu Yan clenched his teeth as he sensed the wind coming at him. He grabbed Elucidator with a backhand grip and used it to guard his side. The boss used its bone scythe to chop down on the blade that is even smaller than the bone scythe and the Heaven Gazer. Clang! Amidst the violent collisions, Wu Yan grunted again. His hands trembled incessantly. The force coming from both sides of his body made him feel like he was suffocating. The boss was like a biscuit. Its two bone sides were clamping down on Wu Yan. Wu Yan held his two swords and pushed the sides away with all his might. In an instant, the two blades clashed and sparks flew everywhere. Wu Yan raised his head with difficulty. A vein popped out on his forehead. He looked at the boss that was roaring at him and exerting more force. A hint of viciousness flashed in his wine-red eyes. The two swords flashed and illuminated the faces of Wu Yan and the boss. With a roar, the Heaven Gazer and the Elucidator stopped trembling. Then, Wu Yan waved his swords and pushed them to the side. Instantly, the two bone sides were pushed to the back of the boss. The boss lost its balance, and its huge body was pushed backwards. It took a lot of effort to stabilize itself, and in its four blood-red eye sockets, two long swords, one big and one small, flashing with the light of sword skills, pierced into two of its eye sockets. Bang! And the boss, who had just managed to stabilize itself, couldn't help but topple over like a tortoise. Its huge body flew through the air before crashing to the ground with a loud thud. Along with its 5 full HP bars, the green area at the top of the HP bar had dropped a little. Chapter 729. As the giant body of the boss fell to the ground started to tremble as if there was an earthquake, causing the minds of the players who were still in a daze to go blank. Looking at Wu Yan, who was still in the same posture of pushing out his swords, the players couldn't help but gasp for air. Their eyes flashed with disbelief. A level boss that could kill a top player with a single hit had actually lost to a player in a head-on clash. Thinking of this, the players felt like they were in a dream. What they didn't know was that Wu Yan was also having a hard time. When he lost to the boss in a head-on clash, Wu Yan could still use the excuse that he didn't use his dual sword style. After all, equipped with a powerful weapon like a Elucidator, the attributes of the weapon are not to be trifled with. In terms of attack power, with the addition of Elucidator's attack power, Wu Yan's already strong attack power was boosted to the max. Even under such circumstances, he can only barely beat the boss in a stalemate. He's also tired himself out like a dead dog. Wu Yan knew that if he had to fight the boss a second time, he wouldn't have any extra burst power to kill the boss. That's why he chose to attack the boss's eyes to buy himself some time. Everyone, attack! The shrewd Heathcliff naturally wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. Seeing that the boss was in a state similar to paralysis, he decisively activated the charge horn and led a group of clearers to the front of the boss. One after another, the clearers swung their weapons at the boss. The guardian boss raised its head and roared. The huge mouth on its ferocious skull opened, and a dense energy wave condensed together. In just a moment, it turned into a sound wave. The terrifying roar directly caused the surrounding space to fluctuate. The roar made everyone's ears feel uncomfortable, and the attacks in their hands also slowed down. With this pause, the guardian boss also moved. Chi! The ferocious skull swung, and with a chi sound, a bone sickle flashing with a cold light cut through the sky, like a flash of lightning, and swept violently towards the surroundings. Be careful! Kirito, who was about to use his sword skill again, had a serious expression on his face when he saw the bone scythe that could definitely kill the Grim Reaper. He retreated without hesitation. The attack power of the boss was extremely high. Only Wu Yin, who had the unique skill dual sword style, and Heathcliff, who had the sacred sword skill, could withstand it. Other than them, no matter who got hit by the boss, they wouldn't fare any better than the clearers who got chopped in half. Kirito didn't need to remind everyone of the danger of the bone scythe. Everyone except Wu Yin and Heathcliff quickly scattered. Fortunately, the level boss was on its back. Although the bone scythe had extremely terrifying killing power, it felt like it was shooting a fly with a cannon. Because it was difficult to control its posture, this attack cut through space, but only cut through the air and didn't hit anyone. Yin Kun. Heathcliff came to Wu Yan's side, raised his cross shield, and said in a deep voice, "We'll block it. Let the others attack." Wu Yan nodded helplessly. The 75th floor's guardian boss is a tough nut to crack. He used his full strength, but he still couldn't do anything to it. Wu Yan didn't think he would lose in a one-on-one fight. This guardian boss is a super strong existence that only appears once every 25 floors. However, he has the support of a healing fairy, so he might be able to beat it if he goes all out. However, since Heathcliff had decided to gang up on him, there was no need for him to fight a boss that was not any weaker than him. That was why he did not have to fight a boss that was not any weaker than him. At this time, the boss finally turned over from the ground and looked down at Wu Yin and Heathcliff, who were closest to it. "Do it," Heathcliff shouted. Wu Yin nodded slightly. Together with Heathcliff, they rushed towards the boss in front of them. Staring at the bone scythe that was swinging towards them, Wu Yin and Heathcliff swung their black swords and a cross shield at the boss instead of retreating. Bang bang, clang, boom, yee, let's go. Each person's attack was like a tickle to the boss. However, once the number of such attacks increased, even the boss could not ignore them. Roar. The boss roared angrily as its HP decreased. Its bone sides were blocked by Wu Yin and Heathcliff. It swung its bone tail, and it turned into a black shadow as it lashed out at the surrounding players. Wu Yan's eyes narrowed when he saw this. He changed his hand motions, and Heaven Gazer and Elucidator flashed with golden light. They streaked across the air like streaks of lightning, and before the bone tail could hit the players, they landed in the eye sockets of the boss. The boss groaned, and it stopped waving its bone tail. Kirito and the others couldn't help but be overjoyed. They didn't hesitate and continued to attack the boss. A new round of attacks was launched, causing smoke and dust to rise from the boss's body. Under the double suppression of Wu Yin, Heathcliff, and the players around it, the boss couldn't even move for a while. It could only twist its body, causing the ground to shake, but it couldn't stop its HP from decreasing. Bang! A silver light flashed and appeared above the boss's head. The dazzling black sword slashed down and landed squarely on the boss's head. If Heathcliff, who has the divine sword, has the strongest defense among all of SAO, then Wu Yin, who has the dual sword style, has the highest attack power and attack speed in SAO. Now, that both of his swords landed on the boss, even if the boss has 5 HP bars, it still lost a lot of damage. Although the damage it received wasn't as much as the combined damage of all the players around it. It wasn't far off. Bang, 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 bang. The sounds of attacks were still ringing, proving that Kirito and the others are still attacking the boss's body. Heathcliff was focused on blocking the boss's bone size with his shield, and Wu Yin was doing the same. He could still hold his ground against the boss's bone size with 2 weapons, let alone Heathcliff. Therefore, while blocking the boss's bone size, Wu Yin also took the time to attack the boss's skull and 4 eye sockets. Each strike was more vicious than the last, and the sound of his strikes was like a thunderstorm. The players around him felt like their hearts were being squeezed. The boss's HP was already reduced by half. Chapter 730. Bang, 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 bang. Sounds of explosions, roars, shouts, and gusts of wind. These sounds echoed throughout the boss room, telling everyone just how intense the battle here was. Kirito and the others kept attacking, and Wu Yin kept attacking from time to time. Even though the boss has a lot of HP, it couldn't last for more than half an hour. Its HP bar dropped to yellow, and after a while, it finally reached red alert. Meanwhile, the surrounding players had no time to pay attention to the boss's HP bar. The pressure this boss gave them was undeniably immense. Under such pressure, they had no choice but to attack, attack, and attack. The sooner they finished off this boss, the sooner they could finish off this raid. In order to prevent any accidents from happening and to prevent any more sacrifices from being made, their eyes were bloodshot. Their minds were filled with nothing but attack. They had probably forgotten to dodge when the boss attacked them. Of course, it's not that they're idiots who don't know how to save their own lives. It's just that they saw how every time the boss attacked, Wu Yin, who was tanking the boss bone scythe, would find the time to use a sword skill to strike the boss skull or eye socket, interrupting the boss attack. Because of this, they would be able to forget about dodging and focus wholeheartedly on attacking. That's why they didn't realize that they have unknowingly given their lives to Wu Yin. If Wu Yin makes a mistake, they might die. But they still chose to believe in Wu Yin. They believe in the strongest player in SO, the legendary player who could take on the final boss by himself. Unlike the other players, Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile have always believed in Wu Yin. That's why they're the ones who did the most damage to the boss. Other than Wu Yin, they're the only ones who did the most damage to the boss. The 4 of them did the most damage to the boss. The boss opened its 4 blood-red eye sockets, as if it knows that it's about to disappear. There's a tinge of fear in its shriek. Faced with Wu Yin and Heathcliff stalling, it became more and more frenzied. It swung its bone sides even more intensely in an attempt to cut down the 2 culprits responsible for its current predicament. Wu Yin and Heathcliff didn't let their guard down at all. They didn't give the boss a chance to breathe. They knew that when facing a boss of this level, the slightest mistake will cause all their efforts to go to waste or even death. At this moment, if there's any more casualties, it's not worth it. Therefore, even though Wu Yan's attention was focused on the boss's bone scythe, he didn't stop attacking. The Heaven Gazer and the Elucidator would unleash their sword skills and slash at the boss's skull. Even Heathcliff was starting to take the time to attack. After receiving so many sword skills from Wu Yin, no matter how strong the boss is, it couldn't hold on any longer. Its huge head was swaying left and right, and even the blood-red light in its eyes dimmed a little. One can imagine how deadly Wu Yan's attacks are to the boss. Indeed, without Wu Yin, it would take at least an hour for these players to kill the boss. It was the same in the original work. But now, with the addition of Wu Yin, the boss HP bar was almost empty in less than half an hour. And at some point, the 5 long HP bars were finally down to the last bit. Wu Yan's eyes flashed. With a wave of his hand, the healing fairy immediately healed him back to full health. Then, with a shake of his hands, 2 black swords of different sizes suddenly burst out with a dazzling light. Gathering all his strength, he leaped up. Wu Yin dodged the bone scythe and stepped on the back of the bone scythe. Borrowing the momentum, Wu Yan's figure shot towards the boss's face. Then, the 2 swords glowing with the light of the stars came crashing down. Bang! The terrifying blow, mixed with the sound of an explosion, mercilessly landed between the boss's eyebrows. With a bang, the boss's huge skull exploded into pieces. Only a red code mark was left on the front of the boss's spine. Following the explosion of the boss's head, its gigantic body abruptly froze on the spot. Its wriggling bony feet seemed to have been tied up by something. It froze on the spot, unable to move an inch. Kirito, Suda, Klein, Agile, and the surrounding players were all stunned. Heathcliff narrowed his eyes and put down the crossed shield in his hand. Everyone's eyes turned towards Wuyin, who was slowly descending from the sky and landing with one foot on the ground. For a long time, no one spoke. Bang! The sound of glass shattering could be heard. Every player trembled as they regained their senses. The first thing they saw was the giant boss's body shattering into pieces and scattering in all directions. Following that, the fiery red glow around the area gradually dimmed. The bright room was plunged into darkness. Above the room, the English words that signified the completion of the dungeon flashed. Accompanied by the sound effect, the words hung above everyone's head, dispelling the tension in the players' hearts. It had been half an hour since they stepped into the boss's room, and the boss was finally defeated. The 75th floor. They cleared the floor. The door to the boss's room opened in an instant, exposing the path outside to everyone's eyes. When they entered this room, they already knew that unless the boss died or they all died, the door to the room wouldn't open. Now that the door to the boss's room had been opened and they had survived, there could only be one conclusion. The boss had been killed. All of this was real. It's over. Kirito stared blankly at the mark above his head and muttered softly. It was like a chemical reaction that triggered everyone's reaction. It's over. Yes, it's over. We cleared the floor. We cleared the floor. The players desperately resisted the urge to cheer because they no longer had any strength left. The exhaustion came from the bottom of their hearts. When they put down their weapons, they collapsed to the ground. Their mouths were constantly gasping for breath. On their faces, there were already traces of tears. That's the joy of surviving a disaster. However, this joy was quickly extinguished by the sound of a voice. How many died? The entire place suddenly became quiet. No one made a sound. The people who were panting violently just a moment ago all shut their mouths. They didn't dare to make any noise. They were all listening attentively. That heavy number, for I don't know who it was, but someone slowly said this sentence. 3 people died when the boss first appeared. There was another person who fought and ran away while attacking the boss. He was killed by the boss in one hit. Wuyin, Kirito, Suda, Klein, Agile, and everyone else went silent. Chapter 731. For people died. Compared to the number of people who died in the original game, this number is nothing short of a miracle. Of course, the players lying paralyzed on the floor of the boss room didn't know the plot of the original novel. They also didn't know that in the original novel, more than twice the number of them would follow the 4 dead players to the underworld. However, this didn't prevent them from feeling disappointed. They all knew that when they were fighting the boss had a lot of opportunities to attack them and kill them. But because of Wuyin, the boss attacks were interrupted. That's why they forgot about everything and focused on attacking. In other words, if it wasn't for Wuyin's help, more than 4 of them would have died. That's why they didn't know about the original plot, but they knew what happened just now. If it wasn't for Wuyin, they might have died in the boss' hands. Their hearts felt cold. Is it really possible for us to completely conquer this game? Everyone couldn't help but have this question in their minds. Only Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile had the same question in their minds. They looked at Wuyin, who was not far away from them. When they saw him wielding his twin swords with a calm expression on his face, all the doubts and coldness in their hearts disappeared in an instant. Only determination remained in their hearts. Wuyin played a bigger role in this boss battle than anyone else. If it wasn't for him and Heathcliff blocking the boss attacks, they would have died. If it wasn't for Wuyin interrupting the boss attacks and attracting the boss aggro, they would have lost more people. If Wu Yin can participate in every floor's boss fight in the future, then the complete raid will be a success. They can do it. Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile's hearts were set on fire. That's the fire of hope. It's their hope to clear SAO. On the other hand, Wu Yin sighed in relief when he saw how well Kirito and the others are doing. He couldn't help but grin when he saw Kirito taking care of the clearers. The grin on his face widened even further. Don't forget, the reason why Wu Yin came to this world is because he summoned Yukari in advance. That's why the quest is mandatory. Mandatory quest, clear the game. Mission, enter the world of swords and sabers. Enter the world of SEO and clear all 100 floors of Aincrad. Quest requirement. During the quest, the user is not allowed to use any abilities, equipment, or items. The user is not allowed to bring other characters into the Sword and Saber Dominion world. Wu Yin has to clear all 100 floors of Aincrad. This means that he can't let Kirito discover Heathcliff's true identity like what happened in the original work. In the original work, when Kirito found out that Heathcliff was Kaiba Akihiko, the boss of the 75th floor was killed, and they cleared the 75th floor, which was now. If Kirito finds out about Heathcliff's identity, Wu Yin's quest will fail by half. Who knows if someone else will jump out and take a hit for Kirito. That way, Kirito will be able to kill Heathcliff and clear SAO. Even if Kirito can't beat Heathcliff now that he no longer has dual swords, it's still the same for Kirito. Because Wu Yin won't let Kirito die in Heathcliff's hands. In order to save Kirito, a battle with Heathcliff would be unavoidable. It's possible that he will fail by half, or even lose the whole game. At that time, if he fails the quest, he will be taken out of this world by the system and sent to the next dungeon. What about Asuna? What about Yui? If he leaves this world, time will stop, and the next time he enters this world will be the same. But Wu Yin doesn't want that to happen. He promised Asuna that he will go back to this world. Even if Asuna doesn't feel anything, he will feel a thorn in his heart. Fortunately, Kirito didn't find out Heathcliff's true identity. In the original work, Kirito was able to discover Heathcliff's true identity because he had a duel with Heathcliff. He discovered that Heathcliff had broken through the system's restrictions and obtained assistance. But now, without the dual sword school and Asuna, Kirito and Heathcliff had lost a lot of contact. So naturally, there was no duel between them. That's how Heathcliff's true identity is hidden. Wu Yin could only apologize to Kirito and the others for not being able to leave this world early. He then glanced at Heathcliff and opened his personal interface to check his loot. Heathcliff also glanced at Wu Yin before he turned around and told the other players that Wu Yin got the loot alone. This made Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile nervous. They were worried that these players would be hostile to Wu Yin. After going through so much trouble and risking their lives to kill the final boss, they didn't even get any loot. People's hearts were very narrow-minded. Under such circumstances, it was natural for them to be hostile towards each other. But what surprised Kirito and the others, and even Heathcliff, was that after hearing this, the players around them all nodded in agreement without any objections. Could it be that these people were really so magnanimous? They didn't know that the players around them were grateful to Wu Yin for repeatedly interrupting the boss attacks and saving their lives. That's why they didn't care about the loot. This was quite unexpected. Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile looked at each other. They didn't know what was going on, but they sighed in relief. No matter what, it's a good thing. Commander Heathcliff. Kirito looked at Heathcliff and said, "Activate the portal." Heathcliff nodded and walked forward. Wu Yin walked over and waved at them. "Well then, I'll be heading back. Already?" Kirito and the others were stunned for a moment before they quickly said, "There might be a celebration later. Don't you want to stay?" "No thanks. No thanks." Wu Yin smiled faintly. "Someone died, and we don't know if there's going to be a celebration or not. Asuna is waiting for me, I see." Kirito shook his head helplessly. "Then there's nothing I can do." Yin-kun. Heathcliff suddenly looked up and said, "I hope you'll be able to help me next time." Wu Yin glanced at him and walked out of the room. "I won't go back on my word, Aincrad, 22nd floor, Mommy. Yui asked for the umpteenth time in Asuna's arms. When is Daddy coming back? Daddy, Asuna forced a smile. Soon. As soon as she said that, someone knocked on the door. Asuna's body trembled, and she jumped up from the sofa. She put down Yui and rushed to the door. Please, it has to be him. With this prayer in mind, Asuna opened the door as fast as she could. The next moment, a familiar figure came into her sight, causing her to cover her mouth with her hands. Tears instantly flowed down her cheeks. Asuna, Wu Yin tilted his head and smiled. I'm back. Asuna silently covered her mouth as tears flowed down her cheeks. After a while, the most beautiful smile of her life blossomed on her face. Welcome back. Chapter 732. Today was the best day in Aincrad so far. Just like how there are 4 seasons in the real world, there are also seasons in SAO. But unlike the real world, the seasons in the real world can change at will, without anyone's consent. Perhaps the environment around you will change to a different season without you noticing. However, SAO is different. As a game world, everything in this world is set according to the initial settings. The same goes for the seasons. It will change when the weather is good and when the weather is bad. These are all set according to the settings. Today, even the floors that were covered in ice and snow would have a brief moment of sunlight and blue sky. The floors that were originally very beautiful seemed to be covered in a layer of honey today, causing the air to carry a sweet fragrance. A gentle breeze would occasionally blow by, causing one's mood to lighten up. Aincrad, 22nd floor, in front of a lake. Wu Yin is sitting in a corner by the lake. He's wearing casual clothes and holding a fishing rod. He's yawning while looking at the beautiful lake with sleepy eyes. There's a buoy there that's gently moving up and down. He's fishing. Fishing is an activity that requires a lot of patience and concentration. However, Wu Yin, who is fishing here, didn't satisfy any of their requests. He continued to yawn as he pleased. When he's free, he would look at the boom in his hand and the buoys on the lake. It's as if he's here for entertainment. Today is the best day in Aincrad's setting. Wu Yin can't say for sure that he's going to have a hard time with this kind of weather. There's nothing better than sleeping in. Yet, he came here to fish. He believes that if any fishing expert were to come and see him like this, they would look down on him in the dark or even on the surface. If he can catch fish like this, then the price of the fish wouldn't be so expensive. Unfortunately, the person who said this is, if you get close to him, you will see a barrel full of fishes swimming in it. The barrel is so full that it's almost overflowing with water. At the very least, it's about to overflow. There are more than a dozen of them, and all of them are fat and healthy. Everyone's jaws dropped to the ground. After a while, Wu Yin lazily waited for another fish to take the bait. Wu Yin quickly lifted the fish and threw it on top of the barrel. Wu Yin muttered while looking at the barrel full of fish. This should be enough, right? After saying that, Wu Yin put away the fishing rod, lifted the barrel, and tapped on it a few times. The fish in the barrel immediately flashed and disappeared into Wu Yin's inventory. After doing this, Wu Yin shook the barrel in his hand and walked back home. Let's hook more tomorrow. When he said this, he might as well put a pillow over his face to show how lazy he is when he said this. But Wu Yin himself didn't doubt it, because in this 1 year, he had already mastered all of his fishing skill proficiency. That's right. It's been a year. It's been a year since the 75th floor boss was defeated. Too many things happened in a year. So many that even Wu Yin, who is still standing at the top of the game, didn't know about some of the things that happened. After all, in his life, other than leveling up in the labyrinth area, he spent most of his time at home with his wife and children, living a quiet life. Wu Yin and Asuna didn't know much about the things that happened in SAO. Of course, they didn't know about the things that happened in SAO. Of course, the things that they didn't know about are insignificant and trivial. They can still find out about the important things from the newspaper. For example, the clearer's progress, the information about the floors that they cleared, and the heavy losses that Divine Dragon Alliance suffered after the army. This incident had happened over a year ago. Not long after the boss of the 75th floor was killed and the 75th floor was cleared, the Divine Dragon Alliance found the boss room in the labyrinth area of the 76th floor. The guild leader of the Divine Dragon Alliance did not inform the clearers about his guild's discovery of the floor boss's room. Instead, he led half of the Divine Dragon Alliance's elite members into the 76th floor boss's room. Previously, after clearing the 25th and 50th floors, the clearers noticed that the bosses on the 26th and 51st floors were very weak, at least much weaker than the bosses on the 25th and 50th floors. However, the rewards for killing the bosses on the 26th and 51st floors were much better than the bosses on the 25th and 50th floors. Although the rewards were not as good as the bosses on the 25th and 50th floors, they were still much better than the average bosses on the 25th and 50th floors. Therefore, the clearers speculated that after the boss on the 25th floor was killed, the bosses on the next floor would be much weaker, but the rewards would be much higher. It's a benefit for the clearers who worked hard to kill the boss. Because of this speculation, the guild leader of Divine Dragon Alliance started to have an idea. Driven by greed, he led a group of Divine Dragon Alliance's elites to challenge the boss, and the result was self-evident. The 76th floor's boss was indeed much weaker than the 75th floor's boss. In fact, it was even slightly weaker than the 74th floor's boss. However, it was only by a small margin. It was definitely not something a single guild could deal with. If the Divine Dragons Alliance charged in recklessly, would there be a good outcome? They weren't as lucky as the army who happened to run into Wu Yin, who was leveling up with Asuna. No one was there to save them, including their guild leader, and all of them died in the boss room. The Divine Dragon Alliance suffered heavy losses, and after the army, they left the clearers' front line. As of now, the clearers are only left with Knights of the Blood, Moonlit Black Cats, and Xianxia. The clearers' strength suffered a huge blow, and they were even weaker when they tried to clear the boss on the 76th floor. In the end, it was Wu Yin who stepped in and killed the boss on the 76th floor, giving the clearers a chance to reach the 77th floor, which gave the clearers time to develop. Needless to say, the three great guilds were quite capable. The clearers, who were originally lacking in combat strength, developed rapidly after clearing the 76th floor. As a result, Knights of the Blood, Moonlit Black Cats, and Xianxia also experienced a period of rapid development. This also led to the subsequent clearing of the 77th floor, 78th floor, and 79th floor without Wu Yan's help. Since then, the clearers didn't need Wu Yan's help anymore, and Heathcliff didn't invite Wu Yan to join the clearers. And so, Wu Yan and the clearers resumed their relationship. Competition. In other words, whoever finds the boss room first will be able to clear that floor, just like before. It's not hard to imagine how much the clearers have improved. Even though they lost a guild, they still managed to clear the floor. Of course, Wu Yan's strength shouldn't be underestimated, since he was able to clear the floor alone. Asuna, who was inseparable from Wu Yan, also learned a lot of skills from him and became much stronger. Under such circumstances, Aincrad's progress has reached a level that all the clearers are excited about. The 98th floor. Chapter 733. Today was the best day of the year in Aincrad. There seemed to be something else in the forest. Strange sounds of birds, beasts, and insects could be heard from every corner of the forest, making the already good environment even livelier. Coupled with the clear sky and the gentle breeze, it was a great day to go for an outing. Deep in the forest, inside a wooden mansion, Asuna is sitting on the sofa in casual clothes. She's sewing a piece of clothing that's starting to take shape. Judging by her nimble movements, she must have gotten a lot more proficient in her tailoring skills. She seems to be enjoying herself as well. She has a smile on her face that can topple a city. After a year, Asuna had changed a lot. Although the 18-year-old Asuna was a little taller, her chestnut-colored hair was a little longer, and her figure was a little more curvy. However, she exuded a mature, gentle temperament. Compared to a year ago, her charm had increased by a lot. He believed that if Asuna went out again, she would definitely attract more fans. Her old fans might even go crazy for her. Unfortunately, Asuna didn't have the chance to do so. Since quitting the Knights of the Blood, Asuna hasn't been seen in public since. In other words, aside from Kirito, Liz, Sachi, Cheyenne, and Silica, who drop by from time to time, no one else is lucky enough to witness Asuna's transformation. But it's a big mistake to think that Asuna only changed her appearance and temperament. Asuna likes to live a peaceful life, but she's also a person who doesn't like to admit defeat. Even though she's no longer a member of Knights of the Blood, she didn't fall behind in level. Every night, after Yui goes to bed, Wu Yin and Asuna would go to the labyrinth area to level up. Asuna would even go with Wu Yin when they found the boss room. Plus, Wu Yin would teach her some combat skills from time to time. Asuna's level, equipment, and actual strength are all the same. None of them were weaker than Kirito. In fact, they were showing signs of surpassing him. In the past year, Kirito's strength increased day by day. It can be said that Kirito is now one of the top 3 players in SAO. Other than Wu Yin and Heathcliff, no one dared to say that they were stronger than Kirito, but Wu Yin dared to say that Asuna was stronger than him. One could imagine Asuna's current strength. It was also not to be underestimated. It was just that no one knew about it. Except for Wu Yin, everyone's impression of Asuna was still the same as a year ago. Asuna was considered a reclusive powerhouse. Unlike Asuna, who has obviously changed, Yui's change is as good as nothing. Her long black hair reached her waist, and her bangs were flat. Even her height was still the same. The only difference was that the pure white dress had been replaced with an ordinary shirt and pleated skirt. It made Yui look a little more lively and cute. However, if one were to look closely, they would notice that although Yui still looked innocent on the surface, there was a different kind of light in her pure eyes. At this time, Yui was lying on the sofa with her hands supporting her cheeks. She tilted her head and looked at Asuna, who was sewing clothes. She couldn't help but ask, "Mom, are you sewing clothes for yourself?" It's no wonder Yui asked this question. At home, Wu Yin and Yui's clothes were made by Asuna, but aside from Asuna, one of them is a boy and the other is a child. Asuna's clothes are obviously for women, and the style isn't a child size. Asuna is the only one who can wear it. Asuna smiled softly and didn't slow down her sewing. "No, this is a gift for your Aunt Liz." Hearing this, Yui nodded in relief and wrinkled her nose. "Can you make it in time?" "It's done," Asuna said as she sewed the last stitch. The next moment, a youthful and beautiful piece of clothing appeared in Asuna's hand, and she held it up. "It's done. We just need to wait for your daddy to come back, and we can go." "Can we go now?" Yui's eyes lit up. She suddenly sat up from the sofa and jumped to the ground. She couldn't wait to say, "Dad, come back quickly." Wu Yin opened the door and heard Yui's words. He smiled and shook his head. "There's still some time before we start. I'm not too late, right?" "Daddy." Yui turned around and looked at the door. When she saw Wu Yin, her small face beamed with joy. She ran to his side and hugged Wu Yin's arm. "Daddy, you're too slow. Uncle Kirito and Aunt Liz might get angry. I'm not as stingy as you are." Wu Yin pinched Yui's nose, causing her to beg for mercy. Asuna stood up and walked to Wu Yin. She helped him fix his clothes and asked gently, "How's the harvest?" "Well, I got a few good ones. They're not as good as S-grade ingredients, but they're still very precious." Wu Yin put down the bucket in his other hand. "With Kirito's gluttonous personality, I don't think there's anything better than this." "Don't say that." Asuna patted Wu Yin's shoulder. He didn't know why she was blaming him, but her intimate action made Wu Yin very happy. "How's your side?" Wu Yin looked at the pretty dress in Asuna's hand. He praised her. "Not bad. Other than jewelry, clothes are a girl's favorite thing to wear." Wu Yin rubbed his chin as if he was thinking of something. "But Liz looks like a tomboy. She probably likes weapons more than clothes, right?" Asuna rolled her eyes. She clicked on an item on the clothes and stored it in her inventory. Then, she took a few steps back. "Well then, I'll go change first." Wu Yin subconsciously glanced at Asuna, who was wearing a spaghetti strap dress that exposed her white shoulders, arms, and legs. He looked at her body that's becoming more and more attractive by the day and gulped. He cursed in his heart and turned his head away. He didn't want to get aroused. Daddy, Daddy. Yui tugged at Wu Yan's sleeve and said with wide eyes, "Aren't you going to cook those fish? Uncle Corito will definitely like Daddy's cooking more than the ingredients." Wu Yan pursed his lips and rubbed Yui's head. "Yui, you should know that when your mother and I got married, Uncle Corito didn't even give us a single core. Now that he's married to Aunt Liz, we should be grateful that we're able to give him a present." That's right. After a year, Corito and Liz's relationship finally came to fruition. Maybe it's because they've reached the 98th floor and SAO is about to end. Corito and Liz felt that it would be a pity if they don't get married in their last moments in this world. A while ago, they suddenly announced that they're getting married, which caught everyone off guard. They didn't even have time to prepare a present. That's why Wu Yin gave them food and Asuna gave them clothes. When Daddy and Mommy got married, Yui clasped her hands together and her eyes sparkled. "I wonder what Daddy and Mommy looked like when they got married. I really want to see it." Wu Yin blinked and chuckled. "I'll tell you when I have time." "Okay." While they were talking, Asuna also came out of her room. She was wearing a white dress and a small jacket, and she walked in front of the two. "Okay, let's go." Chapter 734. Aincrad, 59th floor. This was a floor with a very complicated terrain. There were mountains, hills, highlands, forests, and even caves here. If a player were to walk through this floor, the scenery around them would change after a short while. It's a strange sight to behold. There are both good and bad environments. The good ones are comparable to the 47th floor's Garden of Flowers. The bad ones are comparable to the Snow Mountain in the western area of the 55th floor. And a small town called Danik was one of those good environments. It's a small town made of grass and wind. It's filled with greenery. Whenever a player walks through this place, they'll never lose sight of the greenery around them. There's always a gentle breeze blowing through the grass. The buildings here aren't as new as the ones in other towns. Instead, they look like rural buildings with chimneys on their roofs. However, this scenery isn't depressing at all. In fact, it's refreshing. Today, Corito and Liz's wedding will be held on a grassy field in Donna's that has no buildings and no end in sight. Even though it's a wedding, Corito and Liz only invited a few friends and family to attend. It's not like Wu Yin and Asuna's wedding where they invited a large number of players and guilds. It caused a huge commotion in Aincrad and almost caused an overcrowding. This was also the reason why Corito and Liz chose Donna's as the venue for their wedding. It was impossible to create a grand scene like the one on the 47th floor. Corito didn't know if it was because Liz didn't like to receive everyone's blessings while surrounded by a sea of people, or because Corito didn't want to stand out as a solo player. But Wu Yin thinks it's more likely that it's the latter. Corito doesn't have that much money to host such a grand wedding, even if his wife is the owner of a weapon shop. Danik isn't far from the 59th floor's labyrinth area. Most of the players who've been to the 59th floor have been here before, so they're familiar with this place. When Asuna led the clearers to the 59th floor, she used this place as their base, so she's more familiar with Danik than the average player. And so, the family of three walked down from the portal and headed in a certain direction under Asuna's lead. It has been 3 years since the launch of SAO, and most of the players who are really playing the game have gone to the higher floors, such as the 59th floor. Not many players could be seen on this floor. Along the way, Wu Yin, Asuna, and Yui only saw NPCs. He didn't see a single player. Walking on the dirt path, there were neatly arranged buildings on both sides of the path. The NPCs were doing their usual routine of fetching water, washing clothes, cooking, and taking a stroll. Everything was there. Even tomorrow, they would still repeat the same actions without any hesitation. Not even the slightest bit of stiffness. However, it was precisely these actions that were constantly repeated. Otherwise, no matter how beautiful the environment was, there would be very few people who would visit a place without any signs of life. Moreover, Those actions made people feel like they're living a real life. Looking at them made people feel comfortable. Not long after, the surrounding buildings began to become fewer and fewer, and the people disappeared without them noticing. Green fields gradually appeared on both sides of the path, and the path was also covered by grass. Everything in front of them was green. A large lawn slowly appeared in front of Wu Yin and the others. On the grassland, not far away, a few tables covered with white tablecloths were arranged together under the cover of a huge tree. A small group of about 10 to 20 people was pacing back and forth around the tables. They were chatting about something while busying themselves with the movements in their hands. Faint laughter could also be heard. Seeing this, Wu Yin and the others knew that they have arrived at their destination. Oh, when Wu Yin and the others got closer, Klein immediately noticed their arrival and laughed out loud. They're here. The model family is finally here. Wu Yin and Asuna grinned at each other. They accepted Klein's praise as a model family. They quickened their steps as they walked up to them. It's been a while. You're still as carefree as ever. Wu Yin shook his head and looked at Klein mockingly. Klein didn't care at all. It's been a while, but the Face Swordsman has always been active in the news. Suda, who was with Klein, nodded and said with admiration, but I didn't expect you to clear the 96th and 97th floors in just 1 month. You really are the strongest player in the game. I was just lucky. I happened to come across the room of the boss and killed it on the way. Agile's mouth twitched, and he slapped his smooth forehead. You're probably the only person in SAO who can say that you killed the boss room so easily. Yo, you guys are here. Yin, Asuna, Yui, Klein, Suda, and Agile all turned around and looked at the source of the voice. They saw Kirito in a white suit walking out from a corner under a tree. He looked at Wu Yin and smiled. If you came any later, I wouldn't have let you in. Well, Wu Yin shrugged. Let's see if someone can stop me. Kirito pursed his lips in boredom. Asuna took Yui and stepped forward. Kirito-kun, congratulations. After saying that, Yui handed a gift box to Kirito. Uncle Kirito, congratulations. This is our gift to you. Oh. Kirito took the box in surprise and patted Yui's head. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, if Kirito knew that the gift box was filled with fresh fish, and it was even placed together with a piece of clothing, what would he think? Well, since they're an SAO, the clothes won't be stained and the fish won't stink, so it shouldn't matter. Gift? Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind Kirito and snatched the gift box from his hand. The person looked at it with interest. A gift from you guys? I'm looking forward to it. Liz. Asuna put her hands on her waist and looked at Liz, who's also wearing a white suit. Today is your wedding ceremony. Mind your image. It's fine, it's fine. Liz waved her hand. We're all friends here. I don't need to be so careful. You. Asuna didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Liz. Sachi, Xian, and Silica ran over and stared at Liz while panting. The guests over there are waiting for you to entertain them. Don't run around. Uh-huh. Liz scratched her cheeks embarrassedly and retorted. I'm entertaining guests right now. Look, Asuna and the others are here. Oni-san, you guys are here. Sachi smiled politely. She looked down at Yui and squatted down. Yui-chan, you're here too? Yes. Yes. Yui nodded. Yui wants to watch the wedding. Actually, there's nothing much to see. Shireen, who was by the side, muttered. Yui and Asuna's wedding was fun and lively. Liz's wedding was boring. Silica recalled Wu Yin and Asuna's wedding. She nodded in agreement. Liz was annoyed by this. I'll tell you. Liz gritted her teeth. I'm getting married. How can you say something like that? Look at me. Wah. Xian and Shili screamed and quickly ran away. Liz also shouted, don't run, and chased after them. Everyone was dumbfounded. Is this a party or a wedding? Chapter 735. Liz. Asuna angrily glared at Liz, who was chasing after Xian and Silica. She gritted her teeth and looked at Wu Yin for help. Wu Yin bitterly smiled. Let's go. Don't let that crazy woman fool around. It's our big day. What's the point of this? Asuna nodded. Sachi quickly said, I'll go with you. Asuna and Sachi ran to Liz's side and held her down. They kept yelling at her, making Liz angry. Wu Yin, Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile looked at each other. Wu Yin patted Kirito's shoulder and sighed in sympathy. I'm really worried about your future. Kirito smiled awkwardly. His shoulders began to droop as if he had nothing left to live for. Klein facepalmed when he saw Kirito like this. Why don't you invite more people? That way Liz won't be so crazy. Kirito rolled his eyes and stared at Klein until Klein got goosebumps. I don't know a lot of people, and Liz only has a few friends. How can she invite so many people? Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't know a lot of people. Liz only has a few friends. How can she invite so many people? What are you talking about? Klein patted Kirito's shoulder so hard that he almost choked on his own breath. Klein, have a lot of connections. If you want to invite someone, just ask me. I'll make sure you'll be satisfied. Yeah, I'll be satisfied beyond belief. Kirito glanced at Klein with a half-smile. There were a lot of people at Yan's wedding last time because of you. In the end, do we know one of them? Klein's smile froze, and he awkwardly turned his head away. At that time, since Wu Yin doesn't know any of them, the task of entertaining them fell into Klein's hands. In the end, the group of people only said one thing to Wu Yin: congratulations. Agile grinned and shook his head. I knew it. Why did you have to hold a wedding? You should have saved the money. I don't know how many items you can buy with that money. It's not worth it at all. It's all because of Yin. Kirito looked at Wu Yin with resentment. Getting married is just a matter of applying and exchanging rings. In the end, Liz said, Yin held a grand wedding for Asuna. As her best friend, how can I lose to him? And in the end, Kirito turned around and looked at the man who was looking around impatiently. Asuna, Sachi, Cheyenne, Silica, and the others sighed in relief when they saw Liz's reaction. She was exasperated. In the end, it became like this, aha. Wu Yin laughed dryly. The corner of his lips twitched. I can't believe it's because of me. Yui, who was holding Wu Yan's hand, suddenly said. Yui thinks it's good. It's good this way. Wu Yin and the others were stunned. They looked at Yui reflexively. Yui, on the other hand, was looking at Asuna and the others. Everyone has a smile on their faces. They look so happy. Yui hugged Wu Yan's arm with both of her hands. She lifted her head and revealed a cute smile. She even closed her eyes as she giggled. Yui is happy to see everyone so happy. Yui's cute smile made Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile smile as well. Wu Yin frowned slightly. His wine-red pupils shrunk as if he thought of something. He looked at Yui thoughtfully. Wu Yin looked at Yui carefully. His lips curved into a smile. He stroked Yui's head and said softly, If Yui is happy, Daddy and Mommy will be happy too. Yui's eyes lit up. She met Wu Yan's gaze. She nodded her head, and the smile on her face became even brighter. Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile looked at each other. They saw the strange atmosphere between Wu Yin and Yui and decided to forget about it. Speaking of which, Yin, Keita's expression became serious, and his voice softened a little. During this period of time, have you discovered the room of the 98th floor's guardian boss? Everyone's expression changed when they heard Suda mention the strategy. Wu Yin shook his head helplessly. No, I'm alone. Asuna is the only one who follows me when I go to the labyrinth. It's even harder to find the boss's room than it is for you guys, even if we're on the 98th floor. Aincrad was a gigantic floating city made of steel. It was shaped like a pyramid, and its surface area increased gradually from top to bottom. In other words, the first floor of Aincrad was the largest, while the 100th floor was the smallest. Similarly, the higher the floor, the smaller the area of the labyrinth. By the 98th floor, the area of the labyrinth isn't much. However, the smaller the area, the more monsters there are. The monsters in the labyrinth are grouped up, and it's very difficult to clear them. Even if Wu Yin can kill these monsters in groups, it'll take him a lot of time. Even if he teamed up with Asuna, they won't be able to save much time. With such a difficult strategy, finding the boss room and recording the map will be a lot harder. In terms of difficulty, It's not much different from the labyrinth on the lower floors. That's why, with only 2 people, it's hard for Wu Yin to find the boss's room. He only ran into it by chance on the 96th and 97th floors. Wu Yin rubbed his forehead and looked at Suda. "Why are you suddenly asking about the boss room?" Suda lowered his head. Kirito, Klein, and Agile seemed to know the reason as well. Their expressions turned heavy, which made Wu Yin frown. Did something happen? Kirito and the others were silent. After a while, Suda said, "Recently, the clearers have been in a bad situation." "Clearers?" Huh. Klein closed his eyes and shook his head. "You don't know, but recently almost 10% of the clearers died in the labyrinth area." "Wah!" Wu Yin inhaled a breath of cold air. "How is that possible? I've been to the labyrinth area. The monsters there are strong, but it shouldn't be strong enough to kill so many of the clearers, right? So many of them died. Is there a trap?" "No, that's not it." Agile smiled bitterly. "Then is there a certain death setting? Or is there another powerful monster in the labyrinth area?" "No, that's not it." Suda gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "There are no traps, no certain death settings, and no unusually powerful monsters. The labyrinth area is still the same as before. Other than the map being different and the location of the boss room being different, the monsters and safe areas are all normal." "Normal?" Wu Yin narrowed his eyes and looked at Kirito and the others seriously. "If that's the case, why are there still so many deaths?" "Let me explain." Kirito took a deep breath and said, "To be honest, the clearers should be blamed for this." Wu Yin frowned and didn't say anything. He waited for Kirito to continue. "As of now, Aincrad has already reached the 98th floor. There are only 3 floors left to complete the dungeon, including the 98th floor. As long as they can clear those 3 floors and kill the boss on the 100th floor, Isao will come to an end, and the players who are trapped here will be able to leave this world of death. By then, Wu Yan's mission will be complete. No matter what happens to the clearers, he has to be careful. After all, the final boss of Aincrad's 100th floor is inside." Chapter 736. As the topic of conversation unfolded, the atmosphere began to become more and more solemn. Right now, Aincrad's raid is nearing its end. Kirito's eyes were filled with hope when he said this. Not only Kirito, but Klein, Agile, and Suda also had the same feeling. The 4 of them didn't dislike this world, but they didn't like it either. They wanted to leave this world as soon as possible. In Sao, except for Wu Yin, everyone wants to leave this world. Who would like to live in a world where their life could be in danger at any time? Including Asuna. Asuna has been living a blissful life ever since she got married to Wu Yin. However, Asuna didn't want to stay in this world at all. Even though this world brought her many unforgettable memories, she still wanted to go back to the real world with her beloved husband and adorable daughter. After all, Sao is just a game world. There's no sense of belonging in it. People like Wu Yin, who's been traveling around the dungeons, don't care about this world. But for others, being in a world that doesn't belong to them, everything in front of them is fake, and only death is real. No one can bear it. Wu Yin could empathize with their feelings. He saw the same kind of hope in Asuna's eyes more than once. He didn't feel anything wrong with it. However, he didn't expect the deaths of 10% of the clearers to be related to this kind of hope. But Kirito's tone changed. His expression became bitter. As more and more floors were cleared, the clearers became more and more anxious. And now, the clearers are getting more and more anxious. Now, there are only 3 floors left. Once they've cleared the floors, the clearers will be truly liberated and return to the real world. Because of this, the clearers are showing signs of going crazy. In order to return to the real world as soon as possible, some clearers even formed teams in private and went to the labyrinth area without the consent of others. Hearing this, Wu Yan's face darkened. It's understandable that the clearers became anxious when their hope was about to arrive. After all, the earlier the clearers progressed, the faster the clearers progressed. The earlier the day of clearing the dungeon, the closer it would be to the day of leaving. But in this kind of mood, rashly clearing the dungeon would only result in more losses than gains. True enough. Kirito's words confirmed Wu Yan's thoughts. It wouldn't be a big problem if they just formed a team to raid the labyrinth. The problem is the players who are willing to form a team. It's all because of those players who are eager to clear the dungeon. As a result, they're too impatient when facing the monsters in the labyrinth. They didn't consider the relationship between formation, support, and combat power. They lack strategy and only know how to reduce the monster's HP. Kirito didn't say anything else, but everyone understood what he meant. It's like when a player is fighting against a boss in a video game. When the boss's HP is down to the last bar, the average player will start to get anxious. In this kind of situation, the player will usually use the simplest way to solve the problem. For example, rushing forward to clear the boss's HP as soon as possible. For example, during the boss battle on the first floor, a player named Diavel died, trying to get the last hit on the boss. Originally, if the clearers kept going like that, they would have won, but in the end, the tables turned. Because the boss is still a boss, if you fight it head-on, you won't have to think about whether the clearers have more HP or the boss has more HP. That's the situation for the clearers who are eager to clear the labyrinth. Although their opponent isn't the boss, as mentioned earlier, the size of the labyrinth will shrink after reaching the 98th floor. The number of monsters will increase and the density will increase. If a clearers impatiently try to kill a monster by attrition, will they have enough HP to resist the monsters around them? They might be able to resist one monster, but what about 2? 3? A group? Of course, if the clearers level is higher than the monsters, they can do whatever they want. But the problem is, the monsters on the 98th floor are almost as strong as the clearers in terms of level and strength. Wu Yin bitterly smiled and sighed in his heart. He originally thought that Heathcliff was the one behind the clearer's sudden change. But who would have thought that it's actually the clearer's own fault? What about now? What's the situation with the clearers? What else can they do? They're still the same. Klein gritted his teeth in anger. Even if the clearers' deaths reminded them not to be too anxious, some of them still couldn't hold themselves back when the hope of clearing the labyrinth was right in front of them. They're like idiots. They know that it's not right to be impatient, but they still insist on going deeper. They're just a bunch of idiots. That's not all. Agile said in a deep voice. There's another group of clearers who didn't want to risk their lives, so they didn't pay attention to the monsters in the labyrinth and instead searched for the boss room. These clearers didn't die because they ran around randomly and attracted too many monsters, but after a while, they realized that their level couldn't keep up with the frontline clearers anymore. In order to catch up with the frontline clearers, these clearers became impatient and blindly leveled up in the labyrinth. Suda raised his head and looked at the sky. Basically, that's how 10% of the clearers died. That's stupid, Wu Yin commented. Why should they be impatient? It can't be helped, Kirito said in a serious tone. After all, hope is right in front of them. Well, Yin shook his head and stopped talking about this. What about Heathcliff? Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile shook their heads and sighed. He's not in a good situation either. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Some of the clearers are getting impatient, but they don't dare to enter the labyrinth because of the 10% death rate. They've already banded together and protested against Heathcliff. Suda said in a serious tone. They want the clearers to speed up the process and find the boss room as soon as possible so that they can leave this world as soon as possible. A bunch of idiots. Klein cursed. They don't have the guts to go, but they're forcing others to follow them. Do they want all the clearers to die before they're satisfied? What did Heathcliff say? Wu Yin looked at Kirito. Delay. Delay as much as possible. Kirito said. That's the only way out of this situation. Wu Yin lowered his head, but after a while, he suddenly looked up. What do you guys say? Kirito, Suda, Klein, and Agile were stunned. Seeing them like this, Wu Yin chuckled as if he already expected this. You guys didn't think too much about it. Under Heathcliff's leadership, you've already gotten used to relying on him. Wu Yin put on a serious face, and he emphasized each and every word. Listen up, you four, You need to seriously think about your strategy from now on. Otherwise, when Heathcliff suddenly disappears one day, the clearers will become a pile of loose sand and be at the mercy of others. It'll be impossible to completely clear the dungeon. Wu Yin grabbed Yui's hand, and they walked towards Asuna's direction. The four of them were left in a daze, lost in their own thoughts. Chapter 737. In the end, Kirito and Liz's wedding came to an end amidst everyone's joyful celebration and fun. Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile returned to normal after listening to Wu Yan's words. Perhaps they didn't want to talk about such heavy topics since today is Kirito's big day. However, Wu Yan could see that Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile's eyes have changed a little. They looked more energetic than before. At this point, Wu Yin knew that the four of them had taken his words to heart. After today, the atmosphere of the clearers should change a little. After all, only a small portion of the clearers are stupid enough to rush to their deaths, and most of them are already dead. Even if the rest of the clearers are anxious, they'll still follow the rules. At the very least, they'll listen to other people's words. In the end, the main reason why things got to this point was that Heathcliff was only the clearest leader, not the clearest leader. There were also moonlit black cats and Furinkazan in the clearers, not just Knights of the Blood, but also moonlit black cats and Furinkazan. Their real leaders are Klein and Suda. Normally, they'll listen to Heathcliff's orders since they're also clearers, but they won't obey him. That's why when something like this happens, the clearers will rebel and go against the higher-ups. This is also one of the reasons why Wu Yin warned Kirito and the others before. While Aincrad is about to be completely cleared, Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile are also a little anxious. Of course, they weren't stupid enough to throw their lives away like those idiots. They put all their focus on the clearers to the point that they didn't even manage their own guild. As a result, Heathcliff was the only one in charge of the clearers. That's why so many clearers went to Heathcliff for help, mostly because no one was paying attention to them anymore. With this reminder, with Klein and Suda's personalities, they should start to realize that something was wrong with them and adjust their state of mind. This way, they would be able to better conquer the remaining 3 floors. What's more, Wu Yin isn't being an alarmist. He knew that Heathcliff was Kayaba Akihiko from the very beginning. He also knew that the boss of the 100th floor of Aincrad was Heathcliff himself. In other words, just as Wu Yin said, Heathcliff will still lead the clearers to clear Aincrad's 98th and 99th floors. But when they reach the 100th floor, Heathcliff will really turn on them. At that time, without Heathcliff's leadership, the clearers will definitely fall into chaos. Wu Yin is also giving Kirito and the others a heads up. At least, Klein and Suda will have a say in the clearers. That way, when Heathcliff turns on them, the clearers won't be caught off guard, they won't lose their leader and be destroyed. In fact, the best way is to let Asuna return to the clearers. That way, all the problems will be solved. With Asuna's reputation in the clearers, if she stands up for the clearers, the effect will be no less than Heathcliff's, and the chaos in the clearers will be quelled. However, Wu Yin doesn't want to drag Asuna into that whirlpool again. It wasn't easy for him to live a peaceful life where he could see Asuna's smile every day. Wu Yin didn't want Asuna to go back to that place where she's not happy at all. Plus, a man is more than enough when it comes to fighting for the sake of success. In any case, today's wedding was considered a perfect process. When night fell, the curtain fell, and the wedding ended. As for the conversation between Wu Yin, Kirito, Klein, Suda, and Agile, it's just a small interlude. Aincrad, 22nd floor. Yin lay down on the sofa with one hand on his forehead. He looked like he had no strength left in him. "I'm so tired. Don't lie down as soon as you come back." Asuna pouted, but Wu Yin only smiled bitterly. "I don't want to, but my head feels heavy and uncomfortable." Uncomfortable? Asuna frowned and sat down beside Wu Yin. She touched his cheek and noticed that Wu Yin was indeed uncomfortable. She couldn't help but worry. "Are you okay? Are you feeling unwell?" Yui, who had already closed the door, ran over to the sofa and said to Asuna, "Dad, He drank. Drank? Asuna paused and looked at Wu Yin. Her chestnut-colored eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. You drank? I can't help it. Wu Yin rubbed his temples and patted his head. It's all because of Klein and Agile, those two bastards. They forced me to drink with them. I thought everyone was having a good time today, so I decided to drink with them. Who would have thought that drinking an SAO would give me a hangover? I'm not drunk yet. Asuna snorted and turned her head away. Why did you drink so much when you don't know how to drink? You reap what you sow. Wu Yin twitched the corner of his mouth. I'm one of the better ones. Kirito is the worst one. He's still underage, and Klein forced him to drink twice as much as me with the excuse that this is a game. I'm afraid he's going to fall asleep tonight, or he's going to do something to Liz under the influence of alcohol. Asuna blushed when she heard Wu Yan's words. Yui blinked and curiously looked at Asuna. Mom, what's that? What's Uncle Kirito going to do with Aunt Liz? And nothing. Asuna laughed awkwardly and slapped Wu Yan's stomach. It was so painful that Wu Yan almost jumped up. Don't be a bad influence on your child. Okay. It's my fault. Wu Yan smiled apologetically, indicating that he won't do it again. However, Yui didn't give up and she kept on asking. Hey, what's that? Yui wants to know. That? Asuna's mouth twitched. She pointed at Wu Yan helplessly. Go ask your dad. No way. Wu Yan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Yui blinked and turned to look at Wu Yan. She stared at Wu Yan with her big bright eyes. Combined with that cute little face of hers, Wu Yan almost flipped over from how cute she is. Dad, what's that? Wu Yan smiled awkwardly and patted Yui's head. He pretended to be serious and said, Don't ask questions like that. Oh. Yui answered in a muffled voice and lay down beside Wu Yan. Asuna glared at Wu Yan and stood up angrily. Seriously, we didn't even drink when we got married. What should we do now that we're this drunk? There's no item in SAO that can help us sober up. Although there's no item that can help us sober up. Wu Yan sighed. But this kind of dizziness or sleep should be categorized as an abnormal state. Let's try an item that can remove abnormal states. Asuna pondered for a moment and nodded. She turned around and walked into the kitchen. Yui, please take care of Dad. Okay. Yui became energetic again. She stood up and hugged Wu Yan's arm. She looked at him with a smile and let Wu Yan pinch her cheeks. Wu Yan looked at Yui's smiling face and thought about something. Although Yui's behavior is the same as before, during Kirito's wedding, Yui's words were normal but strange at the same time. It aroused Wu Yan's suspicion. Should I talk to Yui about it? You're tuning in to the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.